Meeting to order. This is the Monday, July 25th, Falmouth Board of Selectmen's meeting. The board has just returned to an executive session and now an open session, and I'll invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next item of business, we have a proclamation for an Eagle Scout, Colin P. Simpson. I believe he's here. Is Colin here this evening?
We'll see, Colin.
Okay. Anyway, Mr. Patterson.
Whereas Colin P. Simpson of Boy Scout Troop 40 has successfully completed qualifications for the rank of Eagle Scout, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And Colin Simpson met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and Falmouth. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for a special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank, and Colin Simpson is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privilege. Now therefore, we, Doug Jones, Susan Moran, Samuel Patterson, Megan English Braga, as selectmen of the town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim Friday, August 12th, 2016 as Colin P. Simpson Day. In witness thereof, we have hereunto set our hand and caused the great seal of the town of Falmouth to be affixed. I might just add that the Eagle Scout requirement is that you conduct a significant project that benefits the town, and Colin actually constructed 4 kestrel nest boxes for the 300 committee and installed them in bogs in Falmouth along John Parker Road. So that was his project. So anyway.
Okay. Next we have announcements, and I want to first start with one, and this is in thanks to Mr. Adrian Dufresne, who has pushed the town to paint the fire hydrants, and it's been a slow process, but I must commend how fantastic the ones that we've been able to get to look. I was just wanted to commend you for pushing us hard on the fire hydrant issue, because as I've driven around town recently, it's a slow process, but the ones that have been painted really do look so much better, and we'll keep working at it, and so we appreciate the encouragement to get this done.
Can I suggest one thing?
Sure. Since I'm going to make you stand up and come to the microphone.
I'm not here to speak on the subject, but I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for their quick action on painting the Academy building and including the cupola, because that was another thing that was frustrating me. But as far as the fire hydrants, I'm glad you people are taken aware of it. What I would like to see is adopt the hydrant program, because there are some people throughout the town that take pride in what's in front of their building. And I've talked to several people that have, million-dollar houses with, again, fire hydrants that I'm sure that you've observed that really look like hell. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll stay on you.
Okay.
I just want to take a minute and thank everyone for the condolences and just to say how proud I am to be from Falmouth. Thank you.
We next have a presentation of the Falmouth Village print of the Falmouth Preservation Alliance's Heritage Series to the town of Falmouth. Come to the podium, please.
Hi, I'm Barbara Wayne, president of Falmouth Preservation Alliance. If you don't mind, I'm going to read some remarks because I was sick and a little wibbly. As part of our mission to educate Falmouth residents and visitors about the historic character of our town and its value to the economic engine of the town, Falmouth Preservation Alliance is creating a series of heritage maps. I think all of you, with the exception of Megan, have a copy of that. And this is the first in our series, the Falmouth Village Map. And our intention here is to make us all proud and knowledgeable of what we have here in the way of historic assets. And our intention with the whole series is to cover all of 8 villages eventually. Now, this sitting in front of you, this is the original artwork that Karen Rinaldo our artists in residence, of whom we're very proud, that this is her work. She was fed research information and photos by a small research team, and she worked her illustrative magic to produce this piece. Just as an FYI, what is in full color is still here in town, but anything you see in sepia are historic assets that we've lost, whether fire, water, development, all kinds of things that have happened over many years. Falmouth Preservation Alliance has offered to this original artwork to Falmouth Public Library on a permanent loan to be displayed there so that the public can enjoy her work. Otis Porter, who's here this evening, is vice chair of the library trustees, and he has offered to accept this original work for display in the main library. In addition to printing heritage maps that are available from, here's my little ad, Falmouth Historical Society, the Chamber of Commerce, Old Stone Dock Association, Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries, Belvedere Plains Association, and Historic Highfield, we've created a series of 100 limited edition prints, and these are available from Karen Ronaldo in her studio. So I'd like to ask Kevin Doyle, who's president of Old Stone Dock Association, to tell you about their plans for their limited edition print.
Thank you, Barbara. As I discussed with Mr. Suso at some point earlier in the planning phases, we knew this was coming along. We knew what it was going to mean to the town, and we asked Mr. Suso if he thought that it might be appropriate to hang a substitute of the original, that being this, smaller but just as nice.
Careful of mine, Kevin.
Careful what?
Wait,
Of yours?
it's not
Very
very
good.
good.
Continue to enjoy that one. That's all right. You've seen it.
I've seen it. Beautiful.
And with your permission, what we'd like to do is hang that in the town hall as well, so that, once again, the citizenry is aware of it, as well as tourists who might be coming by, to understand the history and the culture of Falmouth and why what Catherine Lee Bates said is still true. Never was a more beautiful town than Falmouth by the sea, and never were kinder folks than in Falmouth by the sea. And we think that that helps portray exactly what happens here. We have a rooting section from the Old Stone Dock Association, who was the first ones on board to say, we think that what the Falmouth Preservation Society Association Alliance was doing was very valuable to the town, and we applaud their efforts and Barbara's leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kevin, Kevin will not blow his horn, but he was one of the researchers who helped with this map. Not just a pretty face. Okay, so that really ends what we wanted to do this evening. We wanted to heighten your awareness of what's going on, and to let you know that we're currently completing our second map, our second heritage map, which we expect to be published and distributed this fall, is of Woods Hole and Quissit. And so that's coming up next. We thank you for your interest.
And thank you very much from the Falmouth Preservation Alliance, from Karen Ronaldo, and from the Old Stone Dock Association. And we look forward to coming to the library and seeing Mr. Porter's print there. And I'm sure we'll find a good place for the print here in Town Hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next item on our agenda is public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to speak on something that is not on our agenda this evening, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Mr. Finneran?
Good evening. Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. I'd like to comment on a board meeting that I watched last Thursday. It was the Zoning Board of Appeals. And it was relative to permitting an existing apartment. The homeowner's attorney presented the apartment on 121 Regis Road as an existing 5-bedroom house since 1988. He said that on several occasions. Being familiar with the neighborhood and the house itself, and being at home, I went on the computer and the town assessor's site and saw that it's actually a 3-bedroom house, or at least taxed as such. Knowing that's not the end-all, be-all, went to the Board of Health and asked for the as-built card on 121 Regis Road. And oddly enough, there wasn't one on file. It seems that the house is not, or was not, a 5-bedroom house as presented, but yet a 3-bedroom house. And I would just like to comment and make sure that before the permit is issued, the proper information and proof is provided that it actually does have a septic system permit that permits a 5-bedroom house. I know many people who have had to upgrade their septic systems for family rooms, and I think the law should apply equally to all. That's all. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Next item is our minutes of the meetings. Again, if there are any minor typographical spelling changes, please get those in writing to the recording secretary. I'd just like to make changes of substantive tonight because our recording secretary is on vacation. And so,
Mine are of the nature of editorial changes.
okay.
I'm happy to pass those on to you. So I'll move approval of the meeting minutes of Monday, June 27th, 2016.
Second.
Motion and second to approve them June 27th minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next, we have the regular session of July 11th.
I move approval of the minutes from July 11th, 2016.
Second.
We have motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And one abstention, Ms. Moran.
Correct.
And next, we have the executive session from June 27th.
There is a general change that needs to be made, and that's the use of Maya. There are numerous places where it's spelled M-A-Y-A, and that should be just replaced with M-I-I-A. So that could be done and clarify that, but since we need the right parties identified, I would suggest we make that change.
Okay.
And then with that, I'll move approval of the executive committee meeting minutes of June 27, 2016, not to be released.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, none. And then we have the July 11th executive session minutes, which actually are not on our agenda. So we're going to have to hold off on those anyway. All right, our next item is to authorize the town manager to sign the Woods Hole School lease. I need to recuse myself from this discussion. Ms. Moran?
Sure. So we will discuss that separately in terms of administrative orders. The Woods Hole lease has essentially, I just want to get the right one, Woods Hole School, Woods Hole Fire Station, Woods Hole School. Okay, so this is, the original lease by the town was approved in April 1994. Before that, the school department controlled the building. The term was 10 years to June 2005. The rent was $100 at the time, but does not say whether it was per year or one-time payment. The lessee was responsible to reimburse the town for insurance costs, maintenance, repairs, snow and ice removal. The lease approves a sublease to Children's School of Science. For the term of that lease, the town and the lessee agree upon $90,000 worth of identified repairs. A renewal lease was negotiated in '05, but was not signed until '06. The term was for 10 years. And in lieu of rent, the proposed lease includes an agreement to maintain a balance of $100,000 in a capital reserve fund for maintenance, improvements, and repairs to be agreed upon. The rent to be renegotiated for an extended term beyond the first 10 years. including that the lessee be responsible for maintenance, repairs, snow, ice removal, and all utilities. The subleases for the Children's School of Science and Woods Hole Daycare Cooperative are approved. The one question that I had, which I brought to the town manager, was the provision for our building inspector having inspected the building as a town asset, and that we know the condition of the building as we start the new lease.
Yes, Madam Chair. My understanding is that inspection did occur. I do not have a copy of the report in front of me. The former Assistant Town Manager, Heather Harper, negotiated these leases and worked on the details that we're talking about now, and I know that those did go forward as well as the terms and conditions, which ultimately Town Council Frank Duffy reduced to written form, so that information can certainly be shared.
Yes?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
First, the $100,000 capital reserve fund, is that kept in some kind of an escrow account where we have some knowledge of how it's being used and that it's being recharged if there are significant maintenance expenses that get used from that account?
I would need to defer to Frank as to any details in the lease that would govern how it's administered. I'm not familiar with the terms and conditions of that.
Good evening, Frank Duffy, Town Council. I didn't participate in the negotiations for the lease. However, in preparing the lease, I reviewed Heather Harper's notes, which she had, and the idea of the $100,000 is not an escrow account. The Woods Hole Community Association has agreed to maintain a balance of $100,000 in that account, which is referred to, and it will be the responsibility of the town to periodically check and ensure that they are in fact doing it. From time to time, and the lease doesn't say when, but it's probably at the town's initiative, you will get together and decide what repairs or capital improvements are to be made to the property, which they will pay for out of that $100,000 account, and then they will replenish the account. The idea is that there be a constant balance of $100,000 in the account. But it is one of these situations where, looking forward 10 years, I think the parties felt they couldn't identify everything now, so they provided for the flexibility, and that's what I tried to provide when I drafted the lease.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Sam?
Another question. In here was first referred to as the Falmouth Free Clinic, and then it was referred to as the Cape Cod Free Clinic.
I think that's Emerald House.
That's Emerald House. That's
We're
not,
on-
It's actually Emerald House.
Right, we're
Okay.
just on the Woods Hole lease at this point. Those
Oh.
are three separate.
I'm sorry, I probably am
There are
looking
three
at
leases
both.
there.
All right, but I do have one more question relative to the school property. They reserve several parking spaces across the street, and that's not included in the lease.
I didn't know anything about that.
Well, they do. I mean, they have signs there that say specifically for that property's use. And I didn't know whether that was town property or whether it was Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute property, but it's not covered in the lease.
You
And
know, I don't know the answer, Mr. Patterson. I looked at the old lease. It wasn't in the old lease either, so I don't.
In order to assist the board, Ms. Bumpus, would you mind letting us know what you know on that subject?
I'm Catherine Bumpus. I'm co-president of the Woods Hole Community Association. I'm happy to answer any questions for you. Those parking spaces are actually on Woods Hole Oceanographic property, so they are separate. They are not on town property. The town never had any parking for that space. And I don't know if you have it, when we did the other leases the other night, I did submit the copies of what the work that we have done over the last 10-year period. We've put about $250,000 into the building, so we have kept up with the capital improvements, and the building inspector has been there and inspected the building every year. So.
On that point, I'm just wondering if you think that the association would oppose a provision in the lease which would provide for some regular building inspections, just as a, in case, I mean, the present
To keep
board-
our occupancy permit, we have to have it be inspected every year.
So that's included in that, then that's fine.
Right, we do that anyway.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Bumpus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy.
I'd move approval of the lease.
Second.
for, I guess, for a term of 10 years.
Absolutely.
With, and I think there's renewal options as well, in addition to the 10 years, so with the renewal options.
So I think the motion would ask that the town manager execute the lease in the proposed form.
Yes, so moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I go get Doug?
The rest of the discussion on administrative orders. Next is to approve the land development agreement with the Falmouth Housing Corporation and Affirmative Investments regarding the development of 40 affordable housing units at town-owned property located on Spring Bars Road. And the next item, these are, the three are all related, is a approval request from the Falmouth Housing Corporation for expenditure from the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund in the amount of $750,000 for the Spring Bars Road Little Pond Place project. And the third is to approval of an award letter to the Falmouth Housing Corp. And Affirmative Investments from the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund.
And I know we have a recommendation signed by the, or submitted by the chair of CPC for those proposals.
Okay. Mr. Dufresne, you had a comment?
Adrian Dufresne, Precinct 2. I caution the Board of Selectmen on these two requests, B and C. I've lived in that area and witnessed 3 hurricanes, all of which flooded that whole back area of behind the Trade Center. If you'll notice, the Trade Center was built, I think, 10 feet up in the air by, I believe it was Bob Pacheco. But I've lived on Lucerne Avenue, right on the water. And if anybody wants to come to my backyard, I can show you 2 houses in Mira Vesta that the water came 3/4 of the way up their picture window. And that particular area that you people are about to approve for and provide funding for is, in my estimation, not a really good place to build 40 units. And I'm not against affordable housing. If you can fit the units in the area without filling, because I think we have a bylaw against the amount of fill that would be necessary to make those, quote, above the floodplain. But I would caution the Board of Selectmen on both the approval of the project until a complete study has been done by the environmental people going back 50 years to see what has happened to that parcel of land. Again, I've lived there since 1953, and I've witnessed 3 hurricanes, all of which flooded that entire back area.
We have had quite significant research done by the Cape Cod Commission. They came to us 2.5 years ago and made some reports, and the only fill that's going in right now, the current plan, is fill that's actually replacing fill that was taken out. And so that was excavated, and what they're going to do is put that fill back in to get it to a level where they will be above the floodplain.
You know, we can always find a way to do things that are not right. And in that particular case, who knows what was excavated out of there when it was the concrete plant. And I know there was sand that was used to build the building blocks when it was a block company, but I question whether bringing all that fill in is the right thing to do. But that's a personal opinion.
Okay,
If you're
thank
gonna, if you're going to build 40 units, I hope they don't get flooded somewhere down the line.
Thank you. Any comments from the board?
For the record. I want that on the record.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson?
Well, no, I just would say that this project has been reviewed. This project has been reviewed pretty carefully, and, you know, there's certainly ongoing oversight on the project. And I would say that, by the way, that the $750,000 from the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund is contingent on obtaining commitments to fully fund the rest of the project. So it's, you know, there are strings attached to it. That's not addressing your question, but just to let you know that we are still looking at it critically.
I think it has to be looked at very, very carefully, only
Okay,
because.
I'm gonna have to- I know you're new to this.
These meetings are long enough without having me up here, I'll tell you that. But,
The planning board pushed us very hard on what you're talking about 3 years ago, and we dug.
but I've been hammering away, number one, about the legalities of quote, in your case, putting the fill back in that is necessary to bring that, what you feel was what the lot was back at the turn of the century. I mean, how can we set a precedent on that particular piece of waterfront for the purpose that we're discussing, but not allow anybody else to do it? I like to fill in what the opening of Little Pond did to my backyard. I lost 30 feet of waterfront. So the flood situation of Little Pond in that particular area is very, very sensitive.
Absolutely. Mr. Patterson.
Yeah, I just want to offer to you, Andy, let's go together to that site. I'd like to show you, and I think you'll be very convinced when you see the terrain, that it's very obvious how they scalloped out that whole area for that sand quarry. And it's quite different, but I would be happy to take a tour of that site so that you can see for yourself.
Pick me up at my house, I'll walk you over there.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Great.
You're on.
All right, any other questions on B, C, and D?
I'm going to make a motion to approve B, C, and D, land development agreement with Falmouth Housing Corporation and affirmative investments regarding development of 40 affordable housing units on Spring Bars Road. Approve request from Falmouth Housing Corp. For expenditure from the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund in the amount of $750,000 for Spring Bars Road Little Pond Place project, and approve award letter to Falmouth Housing Corp. And affirmative investments from the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. And I believe that they're now attempting, the ideas that this will be called the Little Pond Place.
That's
And so when we refer to it now, we can know what we're talking about with it. All right, the next items, if you want to hold any, please let me know that you'd like to hold them. To approve the dual obligee rider to payment and performance bonds for the solar array.
We do not have that document, so you can pass that.
All right, so we'll pass on the E. F, to approve and execute deeds and instruments relative to the West Falmouth Library land swap. G, to sign a letter of support to the Mass Department of Public Health in support of renovations to the JML Care Center at Falmouth Hospital. H, to sign a certificate of betterment or special assessments for White Pine Lane. I, vote to accept the donation from Republic Services, Inc. in the amount of $1,500 for the community center. And J, to vote to accept the donation from Republic Services, Inc. in the amount of $1,500 for the senior center.
Motion to approve.
F,
Second.
G, H, I, and J.
Correct.
Yeah. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next, we have some special events. And these are some recurring ones that have been recommended by the Special Events Committee.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We're getting close to 7:30. That's when we have our first hearing.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to our 7:30 liquor license violation hearing. I need to read it into the record, the official hearing notice.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I had previously recused myself on this matter. I had heard, I was able to attend, or participate rather, in the issue involving the manager because my conflict is specifically with the night in question. So I think I probably need to step out again for this hearing.
Some of the issues are dealing with the night in question, some of the issues are in general. Is it appropriate to
Ask me back in?
ask you
Yes,
back
mine-
in when we're dealing just with the night in question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is a liquor license violation hearing for the all-alcohol club license for the Cape Verdean Club 126 Sandwich Road in East Falmouth. This is a continued hearing. This hearing is being conducted in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, which requires that the Board of Selectmen investigate complaints regarding liquor licenses with the witnesses under oath. In order to comply with the statute, all persons intending to testify at this hearing shall now stand.
You're already sworn in. Continuation.
We have new witnesses.
If you would like to testify, you should stand now. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mr. Manager, Town Manager, if you would please note on the record that all persons intending to testify at this hearing stood and took an oath prior to testimony.
Duly noted.
Thank you. We'll start with Chief Dunn, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
On April 10th, 2016, at approximately 10:30 p.m., the police department received several calls of gunshots in the area of the Cape Verdean Club at 126 Sandwich Road. Officers arriving at the Cape Verdean Club discovered just a lone vehicle in the parking lot and an individual who stated he was a security guard who had been hired that night by the club for an event that had been held. It was the hip-hop open mic night. Officers spoke to the security guard and several neighbors, and no one reported seeing anything, but the neighbors were reporting they heard 7 to 8 gunshots that night. At some point, the police department received a phone call from Falmouth Hospital stating that there was a male subject had arrived at the hospital and had a gunshot wound to his knee. It was later learned through the investigation that management from the Cape Verdean Club learned during the evening that several individuals an individual at the hip-hop mic night brandished a weapon, and they got that information third-hand through someone else. They didn't see it, management didn't see it, but they had heard there was a weapon. And I think there was also an altercation, a verbal altercation between a male and a female. At some point, management made a decision to shut down the event and remove the patrons from the club into the parking lot. Once in the parking lot, we learned through the investigation, 8 to 10 individuals began to fight. They jumped the victim that was shot. And through that altercation, as he ran away, he was fired upon by a unknown assailant, which is why I bring the Cape Verdean before the board. It was my opinion that the management failed to notify the police department when they had some knowledge of an armed individual. And it was irresponsible and ultimately created a dangerous situation for patrons, staff, neighbors, as well as law enforcement alike. And I attribute a little bit of this back to the, similar to the event that happened back in 2010, where one of our officers was hurt. We never got any phone calls from the management of the club either. And we got 911 calls from other people that were attending the event where a fight broke out. And then at that particular time, this particular management was in front of the board and came up with different solutions, but those solutions were never put in place. So that's why I brought the club in front of the board, bring this to their attention. Very concerned for the safety of everybody, including the staff as well as the management. And I just believe we should have gotten a phone call that night. Okay. It may have prevented the shooting. We may not have found the individual with a gun, but we may have prevented the shooting. With me tonight, I also have officers that were at the club that night. You can hear from, and also from Detective Massey, who interviewed Roy Rose in Westlight, and he can share with you what he learned through his investigation, if that's all right.
Absolutely. And for the purpose of the hearing, what I'd like to do is actually divide it into two pieces. One is dealing with the incident that evening, and then subsequent talk about what has been transpiring with the actual management of the club with the manager. So I'd like to deal with this issue first.
Okay.
And take hearing and testimony on that, and then deal with the second issue separately, just as that's, okay?
Okay, so that's a brief scenario as to what happened that night, if you'd like to hear from the officers.
Does the board have any questions for the officers?
I'd like to hear from Detective Massey.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Detective Massey, the Falmouth Police Department. Again, on April 10th, I responded a little while after the incident. Upon my arrival, there were no patrons, no witnesses. There were only several officers searching the area for any evidence. There was a suspect at first. He turned out not to be involved, was involved with another incident, but was not involved. Afterwards, I did have the opportunity to interview both Roy Rose and Wesley Late. The interview took place at the Falmouth Police Department. Roy Rose being the current Cape Verdean Club president, and Mr. Late was the vice president. They came in to speak about the shooting. Both of them reported that security guard Tracy Williams came up to them and had indicated that there was a altercation between a male and a female that were unknown at the time. During the argument, the male had flashed a firearm. A third party reported that to the security guard, who then reported it to Mr. Late and Mr. Rose. Immediately after the reporting of the firearm being present, the decision was made to stop serving alcohol and close the club. The lights were turned on. They had said that there were many of the patrons were upset about the lights being turned on. It was closed because it was closed quite early. After the shooting had occurred, some evidence was recovered. There were some reports that the fight and the altercation did not occur on the property. It was learned later that the altercation between the male and female was inside the club, and there was a fight directly behind the club in the parking lot, right on the road, on Percival Road, which is right behind the club. Some bullet fragments were located, no shell casings. It was some copper. It's a copper jacket of the actual projectile was located in the adjacent property. Both Rose and Light said that they weren't sure if they were present during the shooting. There were numerous people inside the club at the time that did not hear anything, and both Rose and Light also indicated that they didn't hear anything at the time, but that could have been because there's some music playing. I was unsure why. That's pretty much it.
Any questions?
A couple of questions,
Yes.
please, Detective. Could you provide a little bit more detail with respect to the report to, I guess it was either Roy Rose or Wesley, or both from the security guard, that there was a gun brandished inside the club?
Yes. So there were two, a male and a female, that were arguing on the floor, on the dance floor. A third, some unknown party went up to Tracy Williams, the security guard, and had said that, pointed to those two, saying, those two are fighting, and he has a gun. Mr. Williams went to the club president, vice president, and had reported that there was a gun present, and they just immediately closed the club and turned the lights on.
Did you make further inquiry to try to identify the witness who reported seeing the gun in terms of who they were a guest of? Had they been to the club before?
Yes, we did. We were unable to locate that, the party that reported it to the security guard. The male and the female were later identified, though.
Thank you. And one more question, just with respect to the altercation where the shooting victim was jumped.
Mhm.
And how far from the building, based upon your investigation, was that altercation?
It was in the parking lot, and it had spilled out into the street.
And not the parking lot that's in
Not the front parking lot, on
Okay.
Percival Road, which is the dirt road that goes behind the Cape Verdean Club. The altercation had started basically right outside the door that everybody exited out of. There was, the victim's jacket was located on the ground right there, which is where the altercation took place.
Right there being how many feet from the building?
I'd say 15, 20 feet from the building.
Thank you, that answers my
And the
question.
victim had been in the club that evening.
Yes.
Any other questions for Detective Massey and for the officers?
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have the lawyer for Cape Verdean Club?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Glenn Albrecht. I'm an attorney representing the Cape Verdean Club in this matter and in the related matters that will be heard after this. I'd like to just give a brief statement of the events of that evening as I understand it from my discussions with a number of people and also my review of the two previous hearings on a DVD that I have watched. It's my understanding that when the event, the single event that precipitated the shutting down of the music and the exiting of all of the people in the club was an argument that ensued between a man and a woman who were not on the dance floor but at the bar. And there was a report later that the man had flashed a gun, but nobody, no member of the club nor the bartender saw a gun or heard about a gun at that point. The argument was going on for a while, and the bartender, Mr. Light, who can testify to this, asked them to cool it down and relax or they'd have to leave. They did not cool it down, and so consequently he called security over, hoping that with security there they would finally relax and that would be the end of it. Security came over, attempted to cool down the situation, and the individuals, the man and woman at the bar, then started arguing with security. And Mr. Light at that point saw that this was going to do nothing but escalate. So it was at that point that he said the night is over, and he ordered the music stopped and the lights put on and everybody to exit the club. Around the same time that this was happening at the bar, there were apparently some words between the eventual gunshot victim and some other person, unidentified as far as I know. That whatever words they were having between them were obviously not any kind of a shouting match. Nobody was even aware that they were having words when all of this started. When everybody was ordered to exit the club, they exited the club too. When they got outside, it is my understanding that subsequent, not the minute they walked out the door, but at some time subsequent, when they had exited the building and exited the parking lot area, the two men who were having words, the victim of the shooting and another man, then got into a fist fight. And according to the police report that I have read, the eventual shooting victim said that he knocked this other guy unconscious. That occurred somewhere around the end of the lot and Percival Road. After he knocked the man unconscious, according to his testimony as taken by the police, and it's a report that I have, some of the friends of the guy who got knocked out set upon the eventual gunshot victim. And he, again according to his testimony to the police, was beaten upon for a period of time by these 10 people until they finally stopped. Then he got up, made some rather offensive remark to them, and then started walking away and was walking down Percival Road. It was after that there was the sound of a pop, 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 and he turned around to see what that was, and it was when he turned around that he got shot. Now, what's important to distinguish here is the only word, or the only discussion or raising of someone seeing a gun, as far as I know, was the gun that was somehow concealed by the guy who was arguing with the woman by the bar. That gun had nothing to do with the subsequent shooting. The subsequent shooting was another gun, obviously held by one of the 8 to 10 people who had set upon the shooting victim, who had decided to go out and have a fight with this other guy when the other guy had 8 or 10 friends standing around. So whatever happened, nobody knows what happened to that gun. But the fact of the matter is, the people were told, the event was ended, and everyone was told to exit on the basis of the argument between the man and the woman at the bar. The other 2 guys who eventually got into their fist fight left with everybody else, and eventually things unfolded between them and then the 8 to 10 guys and then the shots. Now, I listened to the testimony from, I think, the first hearing by Mark Finneran, who was there and who pretty much supports the timeline and the space line that we have to deal with here. There's a timeline as to how long after everybody exited there was any kind of fighting or gunshots, and that appears to be a significant period of time, not outside the club the minute they walked out while people were exiting. There was no fight going on then. And he was there and would testify tonight, if you want him to, that he stood around because he was in the club and then came out when everybody was told to leave. He stood around for 10 minutes, and there was no fight going on for those 10 minutes, and there were no gunshots going on for those 10 minutes. And that is consistent, when you read the police report, with how things unfolded between the eventual shooting victim and the people that he was fighting with. So I think it's important that from the standpoint of what happened and how it happened and what they knew and when they knew it, that the only thing that they knew when they stopped the event of that evening was that there was an argument going on that was appearing to escalate between the man and the woman, and that they couldn't stop it and they were going to close it down. While everybody was exiting, the security guard came up to Roy Rose and said that he had heard from somebody else that this guy at the bar had a gun. Now, everybody was already leaving at that point, and that gun and that guy, once they left, were never a part of anything else in this whole evening.
But that's the moment that I wish, and according to the procedures that the Cape Verdean Club is putting forward, that's the second I wish the police had been called. That once the security guard saying, I've heard somebody has a gun, that's the instant. So, oh, this is serious enough, we need to call the police. And the new procedures that are being put forward by the club would take care of that. And I think that's a great move forward.
Yes, and I think it's important to note in that process, I have been counseling the club as to future ways to manage and run events, and as to their license and the use of their license. And I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of that. And part of my role, I see as counsel for anyone, is not just defending them, but advising them and counseling them so that things can change and things can be better in the future. So, but I do think it's important, and I'm not disagreeing with you, that it would be a wise move when somebody's talking about a gun on the premises to call the police. I'm not disagreeing with you on that, which is why it was one of the procedures that was suggested and one of the procedures that the board has now voted on. And in, I think, the last hearing or the first hearing, I believe it was suggested that since boards of directors and presidents change over time, and since things can get lost in the shuffle between one administration and another administration, that it would be good to have a vote on practices and procedures that would survive one administration after another administration, which is why I suggested that they vote on this and institute it as the rules of the club.
Does anyone have any more questions about the instance of that this evening? Is anyone?
I would like to ask a couple of questions of Wesley, which you offered.
Of Wesley?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Wesley Lake, Vice President of Cape Verdean Club.
Thank you for coming. Wondering why you initially decided to close the club.
Well, since we've been back, we have a zero tolerance. Anyone argues in the club that does not want to calm down, I shut the entire evening down. And that's basically to...
Could I just clarify?
Sure.
I'm talking about the evening of the, in
Yes.
question first.
Same thing.
But I appreciate your point.
Yeah.
So can you just take me through beginning to end, what you saw and
Oh,
what made
okay,
you make
yes.
that decision? Thank you.
Basically, it was a gentleman sitting at the bar. Everything was okay for about an hour and a half. That's as much as the thing lasted. Then he started arguing with this girl. No physical thing, they were just arguing. So I asked him to calm down. He didn't want to do that. So I called security. I said, security, come and handle this. And they came over and he started arguing with security. That's when I shut it down.
Actually, since you're here right now, because it's going to be relevant to later, do you know who the guy was?
I think his name was Ronnie.
Is he a member of the club?
No.
Is he a guest of the member?
He was, I don't even know what he was at the time. He was a guest. He must have been a guest of the guys doing the DJing. I mean, doing the rapping. 'Cause
And they were members?
Well-known. He's well-known.
But they were members? The guys
Yes,
doing the
yeah.
doing the rapping
guy
were
that
members?
ran, yeah, he was a member, yes.
Okay, on this subject, just narrow of you making the decision to shut the club down, had you ever done that before?
Yes.
And can you give me some instances?
Any instance where people are not going to calm down, we just shut it down. When I'm bartending, yes.
But that's general. Is there another specific time
general.
when you've done that?
Yes. I can't be specific because we've had so many different things. Weddings, if there's an argument, we shut it down. Anything. Doesn't matter what it is.
Once a month, once a week?
Oh, no, it
twice a
doesn't
year?
happen that often. I mean, once every 2 months, once every 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not something that happens all the time.
And the reason in that instance that you decided to,
I didn't want anybody to get hurt, because
By
people
these
start
two.
fighting. There was a few people there. So I didn't want anybody else to get hurt over, for this. So
and
we
had
shut
you
down.
asked them to leave?
Yes.
And they had refused?
Oh, no, did I ask them personally to leave? No, I
Right.
told them that they would, in order to get people to understand what we're trying to do at the club, it's a process that we're doing. So if any part of the party, because if you have guests at your party, if they act up, we shut the whole environment down, because they're your guest. So we shut everything down. You follow what I'm
I
trying
do.
to say?
That was
Yeah.
my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because in your new policy, you talk about removing someone that's unwanted.
We can do that if we feel as if that would calm the situation down.
And you didn't
but
feel this time that would have
No.
done a good?
No, there was too many people, and to try to do that, then the fight would start, because then you'd have to go and physically try to move him.
Okay.
But it was easier to end it.
Okay.
And a lot safer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Does anyone else like to testify about this evening? Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. I was there. I was actually walking up to the bar to pay my tab when Wesley shut the thing down. Growing up, we owned motels, restaurants, bars. I've worked in the industry for, I don't no longer do, as bouncer, doorman, bartender. And as soon as they raised their voices, Wesley just shut the operation down. It's the most responsible thing I've ever seen. They were doing a lot of business. The place was getting crowded, and he took the high road. There were a few complaints. They turned the lights on, the music went off, and people started filing out the door. I stayed out back for 8 to 10 minutes. right behind the employees' exit in the back of the building, right at the end of Percival Road or right at the corner. And I saw no fight, I heard no fight, and then I proceeded home down Percival the other way towards Trotting Park. I actually sat in my driveway for half an hour talking to somebody on the phone. I heard no gunshots then either, but that obviously they happened. But nothing happened in the 10 minutes that I was outside afterwards. By that time, the place had emptied and the parking lot was 75% empty. So obviously it happened sometime after the place was closed, and it happened off the property. So basically that's it. I was there and that's what I saw, and I saw them act very responsibly.
Thank you. The board has received a statement of some policies from the Cape Verdean Club, and I would like to read what their procedures that they have proposed, and they have already signed that this is what they are going to do from now on. And this is a little bit also making on public record that this is what the club has agreed. They'll provide the police department with a list of events each month, updated as necessary. They'll notify the police department anytime a weapon is seen on the club premises, or a patron advises the club staff that he or she has seen a weapon on the premises. They'll notify the police department when a sudden or unforeseeable assault by a patron on a patron or a club staff member occurs, which requires the club members in charge to terminate the event. They'll notify the police department when an unwanted person or persons must be removed from the club premises. They'll maintain a list of persons barred from the club premises due to inappropriate behavior and institute trespass action if necessary. And they'll clear the parking lots after an event and request a police officer drive through if any difficulty arises while clearing the lots. And I think these are some wonderful steps forward that the club is making, and I just want to acknowledge the efforts that they're making on this behalf. Are there any other questions or concerns about this evening's event dealing with the gun and the shooting? I have some other questions that aren't related to that, that tie into the management, but, okay. So I'm not sure who to direct the question to, but my question is, I want to understand what these events are doing, because club licenses are fairly specific as to what can be allowed, and maybe through the lawyer or through the vice president, I'd like to understand what this event was.
I can't speak to the event, but I can speak to
You have to go to the
Sorry,
mic.
the
what's
microphone.
allowed.
You have to go to the microphone. Yeah, I want to know what this event was.
Okay, well then I think that's the microphone.
Yep.
Basically, we have a member that does hip-hop. I gave them the opportunity to do their art. There was no charge, no charges at the doors. It was all free. So his family, and members, his friends, all came to watch them do their art, which was rapping. And he is a member.
And who was the manager on record that evening?
The manager of record,
Yep.
would be Roy. He's manager, well, not really, Laurie, I guess.
Excuse me?
Laurie,
Lori
Andre,
Andrade is the one on record, and was she at the place?
no,
Has she been in the place, when was the last time she's been in the place?
I don't, not since I've been there. But we had filed for a new manager
Okay, and maybe this
prior
is.
to that.
Okay, maybe this is now time to talk to the lawyer.
Okay.
So we have an issue about the club running without a manager on file on the premises.
Yes, and
I guess I'm trying to find out exactly how long that's been going on. It's been as long as the vice president's been there, but that doesn't give me, or the board, very specific information.
again, it's my understanding, and Wesley could probably back this up, that the new administration came in, and the first time they were applying, all licenses are annually renewed, and all licenses, retail distribution licenses, need to be reviewed, and I believe the deadline for filing applications for renewal of all licenses is sometime in November of the current year for the next year. With that in mind, Roy Rose had dialogue with Lori. I have not spoken to Lori about the fact that she wanted to get off the license, and he said, "All right, I'm going to do that. First, I have to apply for renewal of the license. And once we get the license renewed, we will then apply for a new manager.
I'm not trying to understand the logic of that.
Well, that's really the way the process runs.
Not if someone doesn't want to be manager, you do not apply with them as the manager.
Well, he didn't sign for her. He signed as the president of the club, which is authorized under the regulations of the ABCC, simply for renewal of the license. And then he planned to file for a change in manager after that.
So what he applied for originally was kind of a false document saying, this is who my manager is under the renewal, even though she had refused to be manager.
Yes.
And so I have a real problem with that why in November did he put her name on that reapplication if she had already said, I don't want to do this?
I think that, first of all, he didn't understand what the law was on all of this.
Okay.
And secondly, he was new in the new administration, and he was simply trying to get things done.
And so he came on administration in 2015?
I believe in 2015, but, at some time before, obviously, it was time to file applications for renewal. It was the first time he was doing it. He had spoken to Lori, and this was the way he decided to proceed. Not the best way to proceed, but he decided to proceed that way, mostly just to get the application renewal in on time, because there is a deadline for that, and if you miss it, you can lose the opportunity for a renewal.
It's a little worse to have it falsified, an incorrect document, than a late one.
Well, the late one takes you right out of the race. You file late, and you're not entitled to a license for the next year. Okay. So what he was trying to do was get a license renewed and followed by a change in manager. So I'm not saying it was a great strategy. I'm just saying that he came in as part of a new administration. He had never had to deal with this before, and he was trying to accomplish two things: getting the license renewed by the deadline for filing, and getting a new manager in because Lori wanted off the license.
Well, I guess I will disagree with you. For anyone out there, if you file falsely, you will have your license suspended, likely revoked, and lose it maybe permanently, as opposed to getting it late and losing it for a year. But to file when you are falsely claiming who's manager, and you know they're not, is a much worse offense and much more potential to action by this board than a late file.
Well, I think at the time, coming in on this new administration, just to give it some context, I don't think that, I know that he knew that she wanted to be off the license. I don't know that he knew that she had not been serving as the manager physically on the premises before that.
Right, because he was new on the administration, as I understand.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So I think the way he looked at it was, okay, she doesn't want to be manager anymore. Let's get the license, and then we'll get her off as manager and apply for a new manager, and those were the steps taken. So I don't think that there was this was not an opportunity for falsehood. This was simply an attempt to accomplish two things, one step after another. I think it was his working understanding that she had been the manager, was the manager up until that time, wanted to get off, and he was going to get her off.
I'd like to hear from the officers about their investigation on the license issue.
Just give me 1 second, get this paper in order, please. Because of the incident, shooting incident, started to make some inquiries as to the managers at the Cape Verdean Club. And what came to light was the licenses for 2015, 16, 13, 12, and 14. All have Lori J. McGee as the manager on them. So I had reached out to Lori to find out a couple of things. Number one, was she present? And number two, was she actually the manager? Because information was developed through the investigation that she hadn't been the manager for several years. And the applications that were just spoken about In 2015, when the 2016 license was applied for, Roy Rose signed off on that one. 2014 for 15.
Excuse me, Chief, when you say Roy Rose signed off, do you mean that he wrote his name in place of the manager?
No,
or he
he
signed her name, or?
Where it says here, the information is on here about the Cape Verdean, the renewal application, and it says right here, manager, and gives all her pertinent information. And then down the bottom here, it says owner/manager/authorized agent. Roy Rose's signature is on that authorized agent/manager/owner section.
Thank you.
On 2016 application, which was signed in 15, 2015's application, which was signed in 14, 2014's application, that was a different administration, so that goes there. So those two there, those 3 years, 13, 14, 15, Roy Rose signed those. So anyways, as I said, I reached out, finally was able to get a hold of Ms. McGee. And she has sent me a report. I asked her to file a report with me, and here's what she says. Attached, and I also have some text messages. She had been texting Roy Rose to get her name off the application. She wasn't working there as a manager. She didn't want her name on there. She knew the liability if she, her name being on there. It says here, February 2011, I went before the Board of Selectmen as a bar manager. Subsequently, the license I applied for in her name. So back in 2011, she was a manager. She's stating that she applied for it and was granted the license. 2012, I was the bar manager on the license, and the president was Ron Garcia. 2013, I was on the license with my knowledge, President Ron Garcia. 2014, I was on the license with knowledge and promised I would be removed from the next renewal, Roy Rose, bar manager. 2015, I was on the license without my knowledge, but told I wasn't on it, Roy Rose, the manager. 2016, I was on the license without my knowledge, Roy Rose, the bar manager. And the text messages, these are text messages that went between her and Roy Rose. She saved them because she knew that she should. Let me see if I can get them in order here, how they came through. If you just give me a second. Okay, I think I got them in order here. February 26, 2015. Hi, Roy. What's the progress on changing the name? And that was at 1:13 p.m., same date at 4:14. Had a board meeting last night, all set. We'll be sending the paperwork in for a change. Thanks again. March 11, 2015. Hi, Roy. Paperwork all set? Just checking on the paperwork. Hello, it says, is this still Lewis? This is Roy. Can we talk? Sorry, it's early. Call you in 30 minutes. Thanks. Lori, went to town hall and told them that I didn't change your name, and about the incident, they gave me a website to the manager. It's a text, so it doesn't really come across well. Well, here's the rest of it. A manager, and about the incident, since it had nothing to do with the liquor, and nothing will be done until the police recommend action. Told them that you shouldn't be involved because of what I did. That was that. And then, hi, Roy. Same thing. Hi, Roy. Went to town hall. Oh, this is her. Hi, Roy. Went to town hall Monday for copies of the 15 and 16 renewal. So it was done twice, not once. I'm very disappointed. Has the application been sent and completed? Hi, Lori. Yes, the paperwork has been turned in. And that was, I believe, for an application that he had submitted for himself to be the manager that I denied. I believe I sent that to you and I denied it on falsification of previous licenses.
Any other questions? Any further testimony?
Only that, it was my understanding, again, Mr. Rose, by the way, could not be here tonight. He works as a security guard at the Plymouth plant. His shift is 4 p.m. to midnight. He could not get the day off, so he's not able to be here. But I've spoken to him, I've spoken to Wes, and it was my understanding that he had spoken several times with Lori and told her that it was his intent to get her off, that he was going to take the responsibility to be the manager, and that she was aware of the fact that the application was going in with her name on it, with the understanding that there would be a change made after the license was renewed. So it was, from that standpoint, with her knowledge, as I understand it, when the application, his first application, dealing with her wanting to be off the license.
For 2015.
In 2015.
For
yeah.
2015. In 2014, for 2015.
2015 for 2016.
No. The first time she did know she was on it and wanted off. The second time, she didn't even know she was on it, according to the
She
police
says,
department.
all I'm telling you is, I have different facts from Mr. Rose, which is that she started to press him. He apologized for the fact that she hadn't gotten off yet, and he told her that he was going to put it in, get the renewal, and then file papers, which he did subsequently, file papers to place himself on as manager.
Not until the hearing that we had scheduled on the gun issue.
No, actually, no, it was before the hearing he had scheduled. If you take a look at the papers he filed, he filed papers handwritten first. And then he was told that the filing had to be done, the rules had changed at the ABCC, and the filing had to be done online. So he had to go back and do the filing again online. And I can only tell you that the first papers he filed, putting himself on as the manager, were before a hearing here.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this matter? Any other questions from the board? Okay. Appropriate to close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion second to close the hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. The hearing is closed. And we now have to make a decision.
I'll start.
Okay?
I'm impressed with the fact that the club itself came together with more organization, a set of rules. I'd be interested, I want to, it looks like they were all the things that you read would show a close working relationship with the police department, which is what I think we should have going forward. It's my judgment, based upon the text messages, that there was a knowing falsification of that license application. So those are the 2 points that I have.
Mr. Patterson?
Well, I guess the question I have is, when do we need to bring up the fact that for a club license, there really needs to be, a special event request when it's an open event and members are not basically supervising their guests?
We actually don't have a policy as to how clubs can do that. That may be a policy we need to adopt. But right now, a club license allows a club to have its members and their guests at the event. They cannot get a one-day liquor license. They cannot get a special event license because you can only have one kind of liquor license at an establishment. And
Can I just clarify one point? then?
sure, I hope you would.
What a club can do is governed by Section 12 of Chapter 138, which is part of the alcoholic beverage laws. What Section 12 says is that the people who can be served at an event are members and members' guests.
Yes.
It doesn't say that you can't have events or have people in the building on a special event. You can rent out the hall anytime you want to. You can have as many events in there with people who are not members or guests of members.
As long
So-
as they're not purchasing alcohol or drinking
as
alcohol.
long as the club is not serving
Serving.
people who are not members or guests. That's,
I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, so I guess that's something that I would like to see in the procedures that they're proposing to us in terms of how they're going to operate their club. And I didn't hear that in the language that you read.
Nope.
well, if I may, it would be my suggestion that that particular issue be looked at separately, because I think it's common knowledge that many of the clubs in Falmouth, the Elks Club, the Navigator, and others, have been operating the same way as the Cape Verdean Club for many years. And they, to the extent that they have rented out the facility to whoever it is, a wedding, whatever it is, and then they have served alcohol, the club's alcohol, to the people at that event. Now, I've spoken to the people at the Cape Verdean Club about that, and I've told them where the line is drawn in the statute as to who can be served and under what circumstances. And they understand that, and they're ready to comply with that. But what I'm suggesting to you is, I think that there should be a dialogue between several of the clubs, not just the Cape Verdean Club, but the Elks Club, Navigator, and others who have constant events. I mean, there are flyers all over town and all kinds of information online. Come have your event at our club. And when people do have the event there, and I'd be surprised if you hadn't been to one at one of these clubs, where...
Excuse me, Council, we're getting really far afield. I think the
Yeah.
board can decide what policies it wants to review and propose and vote on.
Yeah,
But I think we should get back to the, and I think the chair has already suggested that. So let's just focus on
Yeah.
our deliberations. I think you've
I'm
answered
just,
the question.
yeah, I'm just suggesting that this isn't something that only applies to the Cape Verdean
Okay.
Club, and this
I
is...
think the board's
understand.
well aware of that.
Right.
Thank you, Council.
I do think that a reaction to the falsification of records may prompt me to move that line further over, and we have that power. I understand what the ABC law says, but we have that power to restrict licenses in response to violations. And so that is an option for us. It does not cover all clubs, because not all clubs are falsifying their applications. It's only this club, and so that is a response we can have to it. I actually feel I'm feeling there are three different issues I have. One is that evening, and I felt it was an inappropriate response. I feel the procedures they've put forward and have promised to do constitute an appropriate response, and I'm satisfied with the motion forward in that direction. I still feel there needs to be some discussion as to what is the appropriate response for the falsification of the application for the past 2 years, and the concern about whether they are really sticking to the idea of serving alcohol only to members and their guests.
So if I could, I'm sorry, Sam, did you have a
No, go ahead.
So I agree, and I don't think I can comment on the first piece, but I agree that they've submitted some pretty comprehensive response to the particular events of that night. I think it is concerning that the application was falsified. I also think that, not to diminish that, because it's a significant thing to do, but I can sometimes understand in clubs that are trying to, it's hard sometimes to get people to volunteer to be part of the boards of some of these clubs. And so, people, I think, sometimes step into those positions not understanding that there's a real weight to what you carry out as a president or somebody who's going to fill out these applications and put them forward to the town. and putting someone's name on it who really, either doesn't know or has explicitly stated, which I think Ms. McGee did, that she did not want to have this role anymore. So I can understand how it can happen. I think, I'm hoping, and I feel the response of hiring an attorney and putting these things together is a recognition of the seriousness of what occurred. And I think that a sanction was in place, albeit it was somewhat in response to the initial event, not to this. So I would like to see that there is perhaps, a restoring of the license, but with some condition of checking in to see if, in fact, the club is doing what it needs to do. So I don't know as far as what options we have to condition something like that, but I think there has been a sanction. I think that the club is on significant notice, and it seems as if there's a recognition of the severity of what took place.
So as a hearing, what I'd like to list is the findings. The finding, I would say, from the event, I want to make sure I get the correct night, of April 10th, 2016, that the club was closed down in response to a violent altercation between two persons. That would be my first finding, that it was closed down.
Well, but it wasn't a violent, it was a
Heated.
A heated interaction, that's fine.
Between two individuals. Another finding was that for the past 2 years, the application was put in with a manager who did not want to be on record. Another finding would be that the club has come up with procedures that respond to the concerns about when they close, that they're going to notify the police, and also notify the police when there are going to be events. That they have appointed a new manager that we have approved who has experience and understands the laws. Excuse me, if we could please be quiet. That understands the laws of clubs and is going to work to make sure that alcohol is being served only to members and their guests. Those would be the four major findings that I think we can put into this hearing. Anything else?
I just want to note the fact that the repercussion of the falsified license was, at least initially, a denial by the police department that that person would not be the manager. So there was a response in addition.
Okay. And if those are findings, now we have to decide what is our, no?
I just want to make a comment about your question about the way the bars are. As far as
I guess, I do have a question. I'll ask either the manager or the lawyer that you fully understand what the expectation of this Board of Selectmen is about the running of the club by the laws of the ABCC. We have not put any further restrictions on it right now, but that still may be a part of our decision.
I understand, and I have counseled them, and they understand.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, those are the findings, and now we have to say what action do we want to take.
I tend to agree with Megan's suggestion for a heightened participation in monitoring beyond what's already been suggested in the document that's approved by the board.
I would agree with that. I think we did suspend their license for a period of time, so they've already paid some penalty. I'm not sure what the significance of that is, but I'm basically in agreement with the other two members that have just spoken.
And if I just might add that I think not so much as I think that we've had the punishment of the suspension, and as Sue pointed out, a denial of really their first choice for a manager, I think as a recognition that there was a real problem with that. And I think that on some heightened level of monitoring is less punitive than it is really to try and guide and make sure that things get back on track, and that the folks who are now in place have the support or whatever it is that they need so that this doesn't happen again. Because I think everybody's probably in agreement that the main goal is for this to be a safe place for club activities to take place, as it is with every club.
And just on that point, if I might, Mr. Chair, this is sort of a deja vu circumstance that the chief has pointed out. There was an issue in 2010, I believe it was before my time, and, volunteer organization, for whatever reason, there were commitments that were not followed through with. And I think that that's something that we can absolutely change with this order and decision. I'm just wondering, in terms of the practicalities, since it would be the police department that would really be the direct monitoring, what might be reasonable, if I might ask the chief?
We do alcohol compliance checks on establishments all over town. We could do a similar compliance check. I mean, but with the club, I would have to see members' names, list what's going on. I mean, there are ways we could check it when they have an event from time to time, similar to a compliance check.
That seems very reasonable.
Maybe if there's a calendar of events, I mean, I don't know how far in advance, but.
They've already supplied us with events for this year.
So then
Well, not this year, this month. And so, I mean, we can come by and check from time to time when they have an event. And we can speak to people and find out if they're members or see whether or not alcohol is being served. It'd be a compliance check. We have a right to check people's IDs to see if they're legal and everything else.
And I would expect the club manager is going to be working very hard to make sure if they get served, that that person is a member or a direct guest of that member. And if they're not, and the compliance check comes in, it's going to be a significant problem as another violation. So.
A quick question in that regard. In that circumstance, is there any other means of, for example, what about an underage possibility? You know, just to, obviously you'd be checking for compliance. What could the club do to be sure that's not an issue going forward?
Underage, they need to check people's licenses or their IDs when they come in, just like any other establishment in town. You can't get hurt if you ask for an ID.
Okay.
Similar to the ones that when we've done the compliance checks, those of you that have been on the board or whatever, I mean, it's usually because they did not check an ID.
So I think I would make that part of the order as well. Thank you.
I think that's already within the requirements of being TRIP certified that they do need to check, so
Right.
I'm not sure, I mean,
Okay.
they've heard it, I'm not sure we need to make it with actually part of the finding. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I see, just a logistics issue. I mean, are we privy to the membership list of any of the clubs?
No?
So how would we know? I mean, I could see where we might condition in the future that they'd have to sign in and put the name of the club member there, but how would our officers know that in fact that was a legitimate name?
I'm actually putting a lot more weight on the manager. I'm not sure there's a way the police department can do that. I think that going to take it very seriously, that she's heard us,
Right.
and I have a great deal of faith in that.
I know, but I'm trying to figure out how the police can actually make a check like that.
I don't think they can.
And identify and infringe.
I don't think they can. I think it's going to
Okay.
be very difficult for them to do that.
Be just taking a person at their word or speaking with the manager and taking her at her word.
And if you're doing a sort of random compliance check, I mean, I think if you walked into any bar or any club in town, I mean, the police officers, they've done this for a long time, they get a feel for what that event or the feeling of that, bar is like. Does it look like it's controlled? Does it look like the event is proceeding in an orderly fashion? Does it seem like people are out of line? I mean, I think that that's what they do regularly, and it would just be performing that here.
Absolutely.
It's the kind of place where an open mic night would not fit within the realm of a club license. Just say, open mic night, anybody can come. That's not what clubs can do. It is, as they said, they had a friend who was doing a rap number, and his friends and relatives wanted to come hear him perform. That certainly is appropriate. Well, I guess I would be in favor of a 40-day suspension of their license, effective when we had our first hearing and the time served. Partly because I'm happy to have it get known that we take this very seriously and that the records you need to apply correctly, and this was not done correctly.
Can I speak to that?
Well, I'll second that.
So may I just clarify? So they've served the suspension.
Yep.
Right, but on record, it notes what it is, to, again, emphasize the importance of the documents being filed appropriately and in good
Having
faith.
having a manager, having a
yes.
manager on record, that you do not operate a business without a manager either on premises, or if that manager is not on premises, she has appointed someone duly to be her representative. And for 2 years, that has not been going on. And so those are two major concerns. I'll give you a chance if you want to.
I only wanted to clarify that the 40 days,
You have to put it from-
I only wanted to clarify that the 40-day suspension is 40 days time served already.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I thought we'd actually lifted the suspension.
We have.
But the 40 days had actually been served at that point?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't understand the chronology. Thank you.
I think we lifted it back on July 11th, and that was about 40 days after when we first suspended the license. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
And just one last point.
Yep, Ms. Moran?
I just want to follow through with what the chair has said, which I think the board has discussed the fact of going forward and really putting together club rules so that everyone knows what's expected, what's within the board's jurisdiction. And I think that all the clubs that have been discussed would be looking for that going forward.
And I've already talked to Mr. Duffy about contacting other towns and cities as to see what they do in their club licenses, because the club license is determined by state legislature. And I think to go to try to change the state legislature definition of club license is going to be very challenging. But we do have other clubs, including this one, that wants to be able to rent their places out, and it serves them well to be able to do that. And we want to make sure that they can continue to do that in an appropriate way. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next hearing is a wetland hearing for Bruce and Susan Sheridan. The Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Section 240-77 of Wetland Regulations of the zoning bylaws of the town of Falmouth on Monday, July 11th, 2016. We've now continued to today at 7:30 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on the application of Bruce and Susan Sheridan to construct and maintain a private residential 4-foot by 231-foot pier, 3-foot by 20-foot ramp, and 8-foot by 12-foot float system in and over the waters of Great Pond to tidal embayment. The proposed work also includes the removal of existing licensed floats and pier remnants, license number 9656, the resource area restoration activities, including proposed invasive species management on the property located at 141 Shorewood Drive, East Falmouth, and with the associated clearing, excavating, landscaping, and shellfish seeding for sponsorship. Interested parties may review the file in this hearing at the Selectman's office. Publications dates Friday, July 1st and Friday, July 8th, and continue to this evening. For the applicant, Mr. Borselli.
Mr. Borselli.
No,
Mr. Clower.
Mr. Clower, I'm sorry.
Much better looking than Mike Borselli.
They took the easel.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower, and I am an attorney with Ahmet Law Firm here in Falmouth. I represent Bruce and Susan Sheridan, the owners of 141 Shorewood Drive, and the applicants in this matter. We are before you tonight because they are seeking to replace the existing float and piers with a newer, more useful, more functional, and more attractive dock. Specifically, they are seeking a 4-foot by 231-foot pier, a 3-foot by 20-foot ramp, an 8 by 12 float, and that pier will be supported by 14 pilings constructed of prefabricated aluminum. As part of this, they have proposed undertaking invasive mitigation and management. Specifically, they're looking to eliminate the Phragmites in the area, and they are contributing $2,100 to the fund for shellfish seeding and management. As you likely noted, this is significantly longer than most docks that are proposed, and that's due to the specific conditions of this site. If you'll look where the shoreline ends, about 60 feet off the shoreline, there's an island salt marsh, actually. So while most docks are limited to 100 feet in length and 3 feet of depth at the end of that dock, that's not possible due to the specific topography and shape of this lot. As such, the applicant sought a variance from the Conservation Commission, which was granted. This variance was from Performance Standard FWR 1016-1D1, which limits docks to 100 feet in length. But as I mentioned, the Concom did find that that met their requirements and that variance was granted. Pursuant to all of that, we're here before you tonight for a special permit under 240-77. There was a shellfish survey that was conducted as part of this application that was included in the notice of intent filing. And that survey found that this area is closed for shellfishing, and in fact, it's prohibited from growing as it's not suitable for shellfish due to the poor water quality conditions. That about sums it up. I'd be happy to address any questions you might have, but I feel that this meets your requirements under the zoning bylaw and should be eligible for a special permit.
How far does one's property go into the water?
I mean, it's, I believe the water becomes state property at that point, but which is why we go to DEP for a dock license, which is the next step in this after the special permit is hopefully granted. There are two other properties within very near to this that have the exact same variance that's been granted, because they both traverse the same wetland island.
What sort of passage will there be underneath the dock between the marsh and the land?
It'll be 5-foot clearance between mean high water and the dock, which is what is standard and sought by the wetland regulations performance standards.
And how many properties are there north of this that might want to access it?
I'm not sure it's necessarily walkable.
I'm talking about underneath, by kayak or boat or?
It's not navigable water. It's a foot or two in depth.
Okay.
Anyone that's accessing it from a kayak or boat would be going on the exterior of the island.
Any other questions from the board?
No questions.
Just the other two docks of similar length, have they been constructed yet?
I believe those were granted about a year or two ago in many cases, or even longer, so I believe they have been constructed.
And the butters had notice of
Yep,
this
a
request?
notice went out to the through the Conservation Commission requirements.
And you've received no complaints about
No.
similar docks or this particular dock?
No, in fact, the Conservation Commission was quite pleased with the design and specifications that were presented to them.
Anyone like to speak on behalf of this application? Would anyone like to speak in opposition to this application? And this is wetlands hearing does require 4 out of 4 votes, is that correct?
Correct.
Given that, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask if there could be some discussion prior to closing the hearing, because if it's...
I'm very concerned about a 200-foot dock. It's more than twice what the regulations are, and I know the Concom has approved it, but it also needs to be approved by us, and I worry about the precedent we're setting to allow it. I know it's been, already now it's being used as a precedent someplace else. So they have 2, we have 3, we can now have 10. It's going to make it very hard for us to, when this comes again, to say, no. How far percentage across the bay? It's nowhere near the 25% regulation, right?
It's anywhere near 25%, but what is important to note is it's only 100 feet from the edge of the wetland marsh, which is what the requirement would be.
From the wetland marsh, it's not their property?
From the exterior wetland marsh, correct.
From the island, it's...
Yes.
You know,
That's what's required to get to the 3-foot depth. And the reason this is a variance is because it's something that is not generally affecting this area. It's specific to these 2 or 3 properties, which is why it meets the variance requirements. So it's not something that's going to be an ongoing issue, because there's not many properties that meet this very specific condition of needing to have the length that this dock is seeking.
I guess the other thing that strikes me is what was there to what we're getting now. It looks to me about a 20-fold increase in dock and pier.
But this now meets the requirements, so we're improving the conditions. We're one, coming into compliance with the wetlands regulations. We're
And the other
decreasing
thing, it's actually useful.
And it's useful?
And the other one probably served no purpose whatsoever if you only have 1.5 feet of water.
It was probably enjoyable, but I think this is much more useful. And I think this is in compliance with the wetlands regulations, and I think it improves the area because we're doing Phragmites mitigation, we're doing shellfish seeding, and I think that, well, I'll tell you, the Conservation Commission found that there was a benefit to this and that there was mitigating efforts being made that contribute to the protection of the resource areas. That was a finding in their order of conditions.
How much shellfish seeding?
$2,100.
Contribution.
Yes.
Right,
And that's
because it's
based-
not going to be reseeding, because you can't.
Not
grow
area,
shellfish,
no,
so
but
this will
they're
become
contributing
someplace
to the
else.
town. And that's based on, I believe the standard is $150 per piling, so 14 pilings with $150 each was
Okay.
$2,100.
And is there, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
if I may, is there a certain level of mitigation for the Phragmites that, I mean, is there a percentage in
I
that
thi-
area?
I think the
or-
goal is elimination, but it's, Phragmites is a deeply rooted system, and they've embraced the fact that this is a many-year project moving forward, but there's a benefit to them and to the town of them doing this, so it's something they're committed to.
And who will be monitoring that? Is there a plan?
There is a mitigation plan that was submitted to
Okay.
the Conservation Commission. They're privy to that, and that's a little beyond me.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that it was
Sure.
not just, sort of in name a plan, but that there was.
No,
something really
there's an
specific.
actual mitigation plan.
I think that started out with a notice of intent, and almost the first thing they came forward with that plan. Yep.
I have a little bit different view looking at the map in terms of, in relation to your concern for the dock being so long. In terms of the navigation and, as a boater, the dock visually protects the salt marsh, which I think would actually be a benefit to navigation. I mean, if you're coming around the salt, it sort of goes in front of the salt marsh.
I understand. Okay. Any other want to speak on this, Mr. Patterson?
I actually was in part of the hearing that the Conservation Commission actually held for this particular line, and I think they've looked at protecting the natural resources very carefully. So I understand your concern about navigation issues, but in this particular case, I think the Conservation Commission was looking at protecting the natural resources, and they've done a pretty good job of making sure that the structure respects those natural resources.
And that's their job, and our job is to see, is the public benefit, does it weigh out the possible public detriment? And that's where my concern is, but in some ways, the conservation issues are, I think, quite relevant at this point, that there is that public benefit, so. All right, I think it's appropriate to close the hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, the ayes have it.
I move that we approve this dock as conditioned.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, the ayes have it,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
by the required 4 votes. And we have another hearing. Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Section 240-77 Wetlands Regulation of the zoning bylaws of the town of Falmouth on Monday, July 11th, continued to tonight, in the Selectmen's meeting room on the application of Ashumet Valley Property Owners, Inc., for the proposed nourishment and ancillary improvement activities at 0 Courier Road, East Falmouth, area affected as Ashumet Pond. Publication dates Friday, July 1st and Friday, July 8th. For the applicant.
I also have a board, I'm not sure where we'll put it. So my name is Elise Leduc. I'm a coastal scientist with Woods Hole Group, a company here in Falmouth. I'll be here representing the Ashumet Valley property owners in this permit to nourish an association beach that they have located at 0 Courier Road in East Falmouth. The beach is on Ashumet Pond. The goal of the project right now is to improve the overall recreational value of this beach. In its current state, it's a little run down. The sediment type is sort of a mix between sand, gravel, and muck. There's some old, fairly dilapidated benches and picnic tables and things of that nature. There was very little signage. And so the overall project is really to improve the whole beach property. So the main portion of the project proposed is to nourish the beach with clean beach sand, essentially, as well as to, fix up some of the other things. They put in a nice signboard as part of this. They have plans for new picnic tables and benches. The total area to be filled, including sort of the stuff out of the water, is 10,730 square feet. There's the wetland resources affected here. There is a small section of inland beach, which is the yellow strip. The orange area is actually upland when you're talking about wetland areas, and then there's a small area that will actually be filled below the water line. And the reason for that was really, this pond goes up and down a lot in water level, depending on the time of year and how much rain we've had. And what they were trying to avoid was a case where we filled right to the water line, and then the water level went down, and now you have this nice sand, and then this weird strip showing, and then water. Aesthetically, it just would be strange, as well as functionally, as you're walking across the sand barefoot, you'd now come to this new strange sediment type before you ever even reach the water. So we have submitted a notice of intent application to the Conservation Commission. It was approved. We do have an order of conditions. I'm not sure if you received a copy of that. Following the issue of that order, I had further discussions with Jennifer. We did revise a couple of the conditions. Some of them in there were pretty standard beach nourishment verbiage, but this isn't an ocean beach. It's a pond beach, and so some of them didn't quite meet the specifics of the site, and so we worked with her to make them a little more site-specific. The access to this, we would be coming through a guardrail along the road. I did talk with the town DPW. They're happy to remove a section of that guardrail temporarily. The dump truck would be able to get in, pile the sand there temporarily. It would all be done sort of day of spreading. The in-water work would be done from land. It's so close that they can use a tractor with an arm and spread remotely, so there's no machinery in the water. Any additional smoothing and spreading of that sand would be done by hand with rakes. And then following all of that, the machinery would be removed and DPW will replace the guardrail. So I think that is a pretty good summary of the project. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Is this a public beach?
It is a private association beach.
And so there's no public access?
No.
And there's a sign stating that this is a private beach?
Yes.
I'm just remember what their rules are on public access, that there has to be some public access every now and then to every great pond in the town of Falmouth. Do you have any idea where the closest public access is?
I don't. I do know there's a town boat ramp somewhere farther along, heading to farther along the western shore, farther north.
And there is a public beach associated boat ramp that is recognized by the state as public access.
Thank you.
How does one become a member of the private association?
It's a homeowners association, so there's a neighborhood just uphill. There's a couple hundred households, actually.
The reason I'm asking the questions is because of another beach in town in which we've had some huge issues about whether this association is going to then pay for this and restrict it to people who've used it in the past, but now they're going to become more restrictive, and there are no plans to...
There are no plans to
change
change
anything, put a
membership
guard
or
there, or-
usage at all. It's simply just to spruce up what is already private, to remain with the same usage that it has membership-wise.
Mr. Patterson?
Lisa, there were some questions about natural heritage considering certain endangered species that were in this area. Could you address what the accommodations are that you're going to be?
Absolutely. So Natural Heritage did point out that there were 2 species of concern in this area. There's a plant called pond shore knotweed and a mussel called tidewater mucket. The stipulations from Natural Heritage, which were conditioned as part of our order of conditions, is that surveys need to be done for both of these species. The plant, due to its growing season, can only be surveyed in September, and so they have already found and contracted with a botanist that is approved by Natural Heritage, who will go out there this September and survey for this plant. If the plant is not found, at this point, there's no issue with that. If the plant's found along the edges of the property, we may change the footprint at that point. If it's found in the middle, we have to go back to Concom and work out a whole different deal. At that point, we can't harm the plant. So if it's in the middle, we can't cover it with sand. That would be the trickiest part moving forward. But all of that is written into our order of conditions as sort of a stumbling block if we get there. In terms of the mussel, again, it requires a survey, but in this case, it's a survey and sweep, again, by a Natural Heritage certified aquatic biologist, which again, they have also found and contracted with. This would need to happen the day of construction. So what would happen is, as the dump trucks are coming in, putting sand on the dry portion of the beach, the biologist would be out in the water, basically looking for and collecting any mussel that he saw, and then removing them and putting them at a safe distance from the project area so that no mussel is harmed from this project. At that point, the sand can then be spread that day. I mean, they do have the ability to move back, so it has to be done in sort of a time-sensitive manner. But Natural Heritage didn't find that we would be harming the habitat in any way by putting the sand down. It's simply we would be smothering the animals if they were not removed. And in that way, whether or not there are muckets at the site, they can be moved and the project can proceed. So it's really that plant, the pond shore knotweed, that would cause a hiccup in the project, but the project's already conditioned that way. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Is anyone who'd like to speak on behalf of this application? Anyone like to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none.
I move that we close the hearing.
Second.
Motion and second to close the hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The hearing is closed.
I move that we approve this application as conditioned.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. And it gets the 4 votes that are required.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next is to report on the status of the wind turbine litigation. The board met in executive session.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, did you want to do the special?
Oh, you're right, I'm
events
sorry,
first?
we had the special events. I'd forgotten we skipped all that first page. We have special events recurring recommended. Please hold any if you'd like to discuss them. The first is the Buzzards Bay Coalition Water Stop. This is at the bike path lot at Old Dock Road. It's actually off of the bike path on Saturdays and Sundays, July 30th, July 31st, August 6th, August 7th, August 13th, August 14th, August 20th, and August 21st. Next is the United States Coast Guard Air Station Cape Cod Wet Drills Training on Bristol Beach on Wednesday, August 24th. That's always a great show.
Mr. Chairman, we had a change in that came in today.
Okay.
If I may just interject, we were contacted by the Coast Guard with a request to change that date from Wednesday the 24th to Wednesday the 31st, and we've automatically, as a matter of standard procedure, asked all departments to review it for that change in date. The board may, as a result, want to carry that for 1 week to give you the benefit of the response from all the departments, since that just went out today.
Well, I would also be willing, we could prove it contingent upon their positive review and if it all comes back.
Certainly can do that.
Then we have the Minot Beach fundraiser, East Falmouth Village Association, Minot Beach, Sunday, August 28th. The Falmouth Dream Cruise, Falmouth Classic Car Club, and this is to close 2/3 of Shore Street Extension on Saturday, September 24th. The Run from Addiction, the Purple Flag Relay, Open Doorway of Cape Cod, also on Saturday, September 24th. The Shining Sea Walk, Friends of Fairwinds, Peg Noonan Park, Saturday, October 1st. Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk, Marina Park, Sunday, October 16th. And we have 3 new recommended events: a neighborhood beach cookout at Bayside Drive on July 30th, a yoga in the park, George Peterson at Marina Park on Tuesdays on August 2nd, August 9th, August 16th, August 23rd, and August 30th, and a Spalding Rehab Picnic in the park, Marina Park, on Saturday, September 20th. I'm concerned about that date.
I'm sorry, which date are you, which event?
The rehab picnic in the park, that's Saturday, September 20th, and we have other events that are Saturday, September 24th. I just don't think the calendar works that way.
Shall we hold those?
So I guess we should hold the Spalding Rehab Picnic.
Okay.
'Cause I did check the 24th, and I thought that was correct. So that's items A through G, with B contingent upon the positive approval, and then A and B on the recommended ones.
Since Mr. Hoffer's not here, I just wanted to know if all the board has read his concerns, or should I mention them?
You can certainly mention them.
He mentions Falmouth Weekend Welcome Shakeout Run, but I don't think that's a different name for anything else, so I'm going to skip it. With regard to the air station Cape Cod wet drills, he's saying, first of all, he's talking about surf drive, and it's Bristol.
Right.
So maybe he's resolved that. And then the Shining Sea Walk, it does go by Ellen Mitchell Bath House, so he wants to know if the bathrooms will be open.
I don't think they've been asking them to open in the past, because it's in October.
All right, so we'll say no on that. And those are the only areas of concern. In which case, I'd like to move approval of items A through C with the change in the date for the U.S. Coast Guard Air Station Cape Cod wet drill at Bristol Beach to August 31st, assuming that there are no concerns on any of the parties reviewing that event.
A through G and A and B. We're going to hold C.
Correct, and hold C.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Some discussion.
Yep, sorry.
You have to come up here.
This rehab picnic is the August 20th.
Okay, that makes sense.
Hi, I'm Ed Moritz from Seacoast. We were the ones that applied for the cookout. I don't believe the date is correct.
July 30th?
Yeah, it's too soon. I gave them a couple of options. I would think the 13th and the 22nd, whatever the 7-day period is between them, because it's going to take us time to organize it a little better, and we're not ready for this Saturday. I think in the application, I did provide for a couple of different dates.
It said July 16th and July 23rd.
That should be August.
And so now it's saying Saturday, July 3rd, or Saturday, August 6th. Does August 6th work?
Then it's my mistake. That would be better than this Saturday. We're not ready.
Is the board okay with August 6th?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I think mostly it's going to be the neighbors that have invited to this event that'd have a problem with it anyway.
Pardon me?
True.
I think it'd mostly be the neighbors that are invited to this event who would be letting us know they didn't like the date.
Well, we did talk to the abutters, and they were amenable to it.
Great.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So,
August 6th.
August
Thank
6th.
you very much.
Thanks.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve, and the Spalding Rehab Picnic in the Park is actually August 20th.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
And that's what the application said, it was just on our printout. So, we have a motion and a second to approve all those. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Next item is to report on the status of the wind turbine litigation. The board met in executive session and had a discussion about our next action that we're going to take. And I'd like to announce that the board has authorized the town manager, the town council, and the town's insurer to participate in mediation with all parties to pending wind turbine litigation for the purpose of resolving all outstanding suits and claims. Next item is to discuss the negotiations for the purchase of the Coonamessett Inn. And I'd like to give a little bit of background before we get to our discussion and deliberations on this. The owner of the Coonamessett Inn, Mr. Zammer, approached Mr. Suso about 5 or 6 weeks ago to let him know that he was planning on selling the piece of property and wanted to find out if the town had any interest in purchasing the property for use as the senior center. At that point, I asked Ms. Moran, Ms. Bishop, Mr. Vieira, Mr. Suso, and the town planner to take a walkthrough to see if it had any possibility of being a reasonable idea. They came back and we were able to, in executive session, say that we thought that it had some merit. The plan, as has been discussed, would involve keeping the historic building and investigating what other things could be done with the property. The order of steps that would have to be taken if we were going to do this, and it is still just a possibility, would be to go to the town for approval of a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion override. It would not be a permanent override, it would just be to pay the bonds for this. There is a possibility that this would mean that we would not need to increase taxes, or we might only need to increase them a little bit because of our ongoing window of opportunity we have in our debt window. If it did pass at town at the September election, and that would be another thing we'd have to vote tonight, to place a Proposition 2.5 debt override question on our special election in September, we would have to, before then, publicize what the purchase price and the amount of money is we need to borrow, because we cannot have this question on the ballot without the townspeople knowing what the dollar figure is. Oddly enough, the question itself doesn't include a dollar amount on the question on the ballot. It just says to fund an amount. But we have to make sure the townspeople know what that amount's going to be. If it does pass at town, it would then come to town meeting for them to approve it. We would also likely have to get a zoning bylaw change, because right now that property is zoned as residential. And if we want to do the things that make most sense, it would likely to be best to zone it as public use. So it could have the potential of being town offices. It could have the potential of being affordable housing for some of the housing that is there, and that would give us a lot more flexibility as we consider that. We do have a committee that is looking into the needs of the senior center and what the program needs are, and they have been charged to look at how this building also could satisfy those needs. But at the same time, they're moving forward in considering all the other sites that we have out there, and making sure that wherever we go with the senior center, we have the program needs that are going to be beneficial.
And I could just speak to that. This is the committee that Megan and I have been chairing, which has an eclectic group of folks who have been working for a long time on senior center usage, the siting, and this additional potential site that the committee will review. We'll do some public outreach. We'll, look at the needs of seniors and the needs of the community in this particular area. Will now include the possibility of the Coonamessett. And I think that, it's an absolute, really an iconic area of Falmouth, an iconic building, and I think that the town really is obligated to take a look at that site very carefully and to, the historic aspect of it, first of all, I think merits some protective views. And, we want to see whether or not one of the potential uses of that site could be for a senior center. It could be there are other uses that that site may also fit in terms of benefiting the town. So I know that, I'm sure Megan will speak for herself, but the committee is very much looking forward to hearing all of the ideas, concerns, out-of-the-box thinking of everyone in town, and we're going to just have to be doing that very quickly going forward.
Certainly some of the ideas we're considering are ones that would allow the major events that have always happened at Coonamessett to continue there as either public events or private events, and whether we would do this through contracting, through an RFP, or through a caterer who'd come in. But we're very concerned about making sure that those events that have always happened there, even making sure that we can provide a way of making some money through weddings to be able to fund some of the programmatic needs or some of the renovation needs, are certainly what we're weighing in all this. And if those don't work, then I think we're likely to head in a different direction. Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, and I think one other option that has been considered, and this is all in consideration right now, is actually to lease out the restaurant and maybe part of the hotel to a private company to run as a concession, much like the national parks do. They don't run their own lodges, they essentially rent them out to a company to run them. So, I mean, that's another option. It's in the mix. None of them have been really prioritized.
Personally, one thing I do love about the idea is that if this all happened in November, in December, you could move our current operations of what we currently do in the senior center, could move into that building, and we could do what we currently do and then expand as we saw fit. Ms. Braga?
Just to add, I think the programming committee has looked at the sites that we've been charged to look at, and it's really a very active, dynamic, and critical group who have really gone through and laid out the pros and cons of all of the other sites. And I think, adding this particular site to that process is all we're really doing at this point, and allowing us to really review it, just as the committee has reviewed, and the committees that have come before that have all worked on the issue of the senior center. It's adding this very unique property to that consideration. And I think it'll be, as you said, Sue, great to get input both from the committee and from the public on, again, pros, cons, and ideas about this particular piece of property. So that's really what this action would be doing, and I think it would be, we'd be giving up a real opportunity and not fully investigating what has been an ongoing project for the town if we didn't take the opportunity to do this with this piece of property.
Mr. Dufresne?
Adrian Dufresne, Precinct 2, Town Meeting Member, longtime resident. I would ask the Board of Selectmen to weigh very, very carefully the decision of buying a piece of business property. It's a lucrative piece of business property. It not only pays real estate taxes to the town, it gives, we get money from the food tax and the liquor tax, and every, it's an employment center. Why would we, the town of Falmouth, want to take over that business? If the business is for sale, in my personal opinion, it should be put up for sale and allow an enterprising organization to come in and keep it as a vital tourist attraction or town attraction. But for the town of Falmouth to even consider taking over that piece of property and the liabilities that go along with that piece of property is, that's one of the reasons I'm here tonight. I just cannot understand the kind of thinking. When Mr. Zama told me about this at the last political meeting that I went to, he said to keep it under my hat. Well, I did. I kept it under my hat until I saw it in the newspaper, and then all of a sudden it's a fact. It's a fact now. It's a location, a possible location for a senior center. Was this one of the sites that the Board of Selectmen originally contemplated would be a good site for a senior center? I don't think so. So I find it very difficult, in my mind, you people are the leaders of the town of Falmouth. And just because some guy is tired of running that particular business and wants to throw it on the hands of the town, I really have a heartburn with this responsibility.
Thank you.
I mean, you know, we're going to start a negotiation for the purchase of,
We're going to,
we read it in the newspaper, all right?
right, I mean, the actual purchase and sale could not happen until town meeting supports it in November.
Say again, please?
Of course, the purchase and sale could not happen until town meeting agrees to it in November. So there are a lot of votes to get there. It is not a done deal, it's a fact. It is just starting the process, and since we were actually deciding to start, or considering starting the process, we have to do it out in the open. And so,
You know, we had one,
but it's not a fact. It is not a done deal. It is an option that we want to
but
say.
it's the beginning of a process that I really don't believe should be before the Board of Selectmen. We have so many things coming up in this town of Falmouth that are going to be a tax burden on a lot of the people that I know of. And for this to be a priority before this board, I really have a little heartburn with it. I am a town meeting member, and I can tell you right now, there's no way I can support that kind of a purchase.
Okay.
It's an ideal thing for the town of Falmouth, just as it is. It probably should never change. And for us to take it over, I mean, they tried to sell us a building on Town Hall Square for $650,000. That would have been a lousy investment, and we considered it on town meeting floor. Are we going to go into the nightclub business or the entertainment business, or I just have a hard time, honestly, Mr. Chairman.
I'll tell you, my reason for supporting it is, if we don't, I feel that we're going to lose that building. So that's one reason why.
Give me that one again?
If we don't take this offer up,
Yeah.
I fear we're going to lose that building, and we have no way of protecting
What
it.
would we do with the building?
Well,
What does the town want to do? Number one, it's not that building, it's those buildings.
I understand, but the Coonamessett
All
Inn
right.
part of it is a 1770 building that I would be happy not to.
I'm well aware. I remember when they moved it over there.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
Sure, and I just sort of going along with what the chair has said, this is a review. We're taking a look at it. It's just similar in my mind. Knobsco, that's an iconic place in Falmouth. We did not want to let that go. In this case, it's if any purchaser, builder could buy the Coonamessett, potentially level it, potentially, you know, who knows what might happen. Certainly there are processes through the town that would give close scrutiny to that, but this is an opportunity to do what you just mentioned, which is keep the building the way it is, and to look at out-of-the-box uses. Some places do
Excuse me, please.
municipal housing.
If you please respect the meeting and be quiet.
Some places do municipal housing. Other places do meeting space. Other places do use it for administrative space, offices. There are vast potential, and we're at this point, we're just starting to look at it. It's tip of the iceberg. We're looking at the question, and we're taking the opportunity to look at the question before something untoward that we might not want to happen to that building does.
Also, I would add, I think you had said that, you know, it's hard for you to understand how buying the Coonamessett, it would be the priority of this board. And I don't think it is the priority of this board. I think the senior center has been a priority of this board for a long time, and this is part of that conversation. And I guess I take a different look in that I think it's actually incumbent upon the Board of Selectmen, if an offer is made to the town, that we put it before the public, and that's what this process would allow. I think it would be inappropriate if something as momentous or important as this, which is a piece of property that is iconic, but also more importantly, could be part of a discussion about the senior center, was presented to the Board of Selectmen, and we just sort of arbitrarily, before we got any public input, said, no, off the table. And all this does is put the issue before the voters, and then if that hurdle is overcome before town meeting, and you're correct, I have and I share a lot of the concerns that you're noting, the tax implications, some of the, the logistics of managing and running this property. I think that's exactly what we need the input from voters on. So I think all this is putting this topic in the context of the senior center in front of the public. And I feel that the Board of Selectmen has to do that. I think it's wrong if we kind of stymie that conversation and shut it off before it's been had.
I mean, it's even a possibility that during negotiation, we are given a price tag that as a board we say, well, it was a nice idea, it's not going to work, but our timetable is to put it on the September ballot. We have to make this vote tonight by our timetable to make sure it's enough days ahead of the ballot. It may turn out between tonight and the September ballot, we come back to the town saying the price tag was too much, the question's still there. Town could then say, hey, you guys are idiots, you should go ahead and buy it. But, I mean, it just is a lot more information we need to get, and this is the first step. So your information is extremely valuable also.
One last comment. A decision of this magnitude should be before town meeting. We have 250 reasonably intelligent people, other than Andy Dufresne, that probably have more doubts or more information that would be beneficial to Mr. Suso on the acquisition of this piece of property. The town of Falmouth owns a hell of a lot of open space and property.
Oh, it has to go to town meeting.
And our infrastructure is going apart.
We're going to town meeting, you're right. It
You know,
is going to town meeting.
This would have to go to town meeting in November to be approved also.
Well, maybe I'm misreading what you're authorizing Mr. Suso to do.
To be able to, so the order of events is, we need to vote to put a ballot question on the September ballot to ask the townspeople in a Proposition 2.5 override to fund the purchase of the building. We can't do that question without a dollar figure. So Mr. Suso has to negotiate what that dollar figure would be to purchase the building. If we get a dollar figure that we can convince the town in September to vote for, and we can then go to town meeting and convince town meeting to change the zoning of this property, and we can go to town meeting and vote two-thirds, and both of these on two-thirds vote to buy the building, that's when it would happen. Only after all those things had occurred.
No, I think I understand, because the reading, it's confusing, and we had a discussion about this ahead of time, but it is not a done deal that the town is purchasing that piece of property. All we're doing is allowing the investigation of what that would cost, and to move forward, we just have to go through these steps. So you're right, all of this, it is a momentous decision. It is coming before town meeting, and it is coming before the voters.
Authorize the town manager to prepare for and open negotiations for the purchase of Coonamessett Inn.
To gather more information about what a potential purchase, what the numbers would be.
I think I'm reading the English language.
Mm-hmm.
You're authorizing him to come up with a way of buying this property.
Which will by definition include town meeting approval, by definition.
Doesn't say that here.
You don't.
And it has me bothered, I'm going to tell you, for the since I got the newspaper.
When it's required, you don't list it, because there are so many requirements, it would be a 10-page long notice.
Well, thanks for listening to me, but I just have heartburn with us wanting to buy a valuable piece of business property that is a vital asset to the recreational resources of the town, and a summer that gives us so much in the way of taxes and income and employment and every other thing that this town keeps looking for, and all of a sudden the town is going to buy it. I just have a problem with even negotiating to buy it. But anyway, that's a personal opinion.
I understand exactly what your points are, and I haven't so many concerns. Mr. Scher?
Den Chair of Precinct 6. I'm just here to say, as you said, you're going to bring us a price. But I want to know what the price is to maintain that building. I have seen the amount of gardeners that are out there every day. I love that building. I think it's wonderful. I really hope somebody buys it and keeps it just the way it is. But I don't think this town can afford to do the upkeep on a 100-year-old and parts of that large piece of property at all.
Okay.
And unless you come up with the price that he wants to buy it for and the price to maintain it and the loss we're going to take on taxes, etc., I don't think that's going to be fair to the taxpayers. So I just hope you come up with the full cost of it, the loss and the maintenance and what we have to do to it to make it a senior center or a restaurant we're going to rent or affordable housing or whatever, because none of that is included. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Daniel Wagner. I live on Emerson Road. And I'd like very much to see that corner taken for a senior center. The town has looked around, and it's a very good location. I do know you'd take away from the tax roll a little bit of money, but there's great potential. You'll never get another chance to buy that piece of property, in my opinion. Something else will go in there. There are opportunities, very few, that such as this, that I think that the town could afford to buy it at this time if they thought of a senior center and 20-year bonding for setting up a special senior center. And that would mean, I don't know, my hearing is not good, so I couldn't hear the numbers here tonight. But I would like very much to see them do it. The town of Belmont, which I have a residence at, has a wonderful senior center. They were faced with the same dilemma this town has. They spent $7 million. They bonded, I think, $6 million of it on a 20-year bond. They raised $1 million with the people of the town to get it going. I look at this, I don't know what your numbers are, but they built a green building. They made a wonderful center out of it. The seniors are very proud and have a place to go. This town, their senior center, is almost shameful. There's no room there for a good senior center of what we have. It's yesterday's senior center. Financially, I'm not for 2.5. I think get things done and have a long-term look at it. 20 years from today, you'll look at it and you'll find that corner, whatever the price is cheap. I, for one, would be willing to donate $25,000 of hard-saved money towards that center. I think you could get 40 other people just like me. You're going to find pockets of money in this town, people who would appreciate a good senior center. Not necessarily the people who use it, but seniors. Those who pass over that bridge, I don't know, 40% of them are seniors. This town probably has on your voting list at least 20% of your people in this town as seniors. I looked at it from financially, that if you got 40 people, such as I, with $20,000, you could put together seed money of $1 million. That would be a start for it. Then if you could take and tap some of the businesses in town, the key businesses, you could probably put together, if you got 20 with $50,000 apiece, good solid people, you'd have another $1 million. I would say that the seller of the property, Mr. Shimmer, you probably tap him back for $1 million as a donation. And these numbers may all sound funny, but they are possible. I think it's a worthy thing for the town and it should not be overlooked. Maybe my numbers, because I don't hear what you're saying, are way off, but...
We didn't say any numbers, so.
Pardon me?
We didn't say any numbers, so you didn't miss anything.
Okay. But there is the opportunity there of keeping the part of that land, that ballroom part of it, and keep that operating and put the senior center on, tear down the left part and use that as the senior center. So you still have your ballroom, you don't have your kitchen there, but you have the bathroom, the ballroom there, so the part of that property could be used. There are opportunities there, and I hope you don't overlook them.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yep. Mark?
Mark Cool, Precinct 6, just speaking as a resident. I've got a question, but I appreciate the commitment on the board's part to at least take a look at the opportunities, the potential opportunities that might take place. But my question is more about, you're saying November, and it feels like the town is being pushed into this. And I think once it hit the paper, the feeling, the pulse that I got from neighborhood people and friends in town is, boy, the town's trying to push this again. So my question is November enough time to actually give this due diligence and vetting? Is there a drop-dead certainty as to, do we have to do it in November? Can we extend it out to spring vote and see how it goes there? Because, and I say this, then it has the ability to be properly vetted. You know, Mr. Jones said that the property could be multi-use, you know, beyond the need of the senior center. So basically my question would be, you know, do we really need to make the decision tonight to go before town meeting in November?
I'm not sure the offer would be on the table if we can't move fairly quickly. Any other comments?
Just as you can imagine, it's a very valuable property to many other potential buyers other than the town. We're just being grateful to be given this first opportunity.
Thank you all for your input. We certainly will be asking it and more and trying to give you more information as we move forward. So we do have to have two votes. One is whether we want to authorize the town manager to prepare for and begin the process of negotiating about the purchase of Coonamessett Inn. I understand where Mr. Frain's reading that we're negotiating for the purchase of it. I think it's just really the preposition we're talking about. We're talking about the Coonamessett Inn's purchase, and we're beginning the process of what the negotiations would look like. We have not determined that we are purchasing it yet, though.
Well, I move the town manager be authorized to prepare for and open negotiations for the purchase of the Coonamessett Inn for use as a senior center and other purposes to be determined, and to report to the board periodically on the progress of the same.
Mr. Chairman, could I interject? Pardon me, Selectman Patterson, would you be willing to consider the word potential before purchase?
Yes. Okay. Yes, please, potential.
Potential purchase. Okay. Okay. It's a motion.
Second?
Second. Any further discussion?
If I would just briefly to that point, I think that speaks to Mr. Cool's point about what the timeline would then look like. Maybe, we don't know what a timeline would look like until town manager can follow up on this issue more. So I think what tonight does is allow us to gather numbers, timeline, all of that. So I think it speaks to that point.
Just thinking, I'm a senior, 85. Under whose jurisdiction would this property come under?
Great question. we've got a lot of work to do in making this happen, and
Okay, again, I think your comments are very well accepted. And I hope the Board of Selectmen and the town manager will present. I don't like the special town meeting in September. Don't we have a special town meeting in November?
this is the only thing that's happening in September is the special
September
election.
8th, town election, I'm sorry.
We're holding to get our fifth selectman. And so we already have that election, which is the only reason this can even occur, is that we are already having that election happening in September, so we can add this ballot question to the town election.
Will there be any open meetings for at least
If we don't,
discussion?
absolutely. I mean, we're going to have to do so much work between now and September 8th to be able to get this done. And if we can't get the information, even about under whose jurisdiction, we started this process in an executive session last Monday. We're now bringing it forward to the town so everyone knows we're going to be working as hard as we can to get this information. And if, as Mr. Cool says, we don't have enough time, then that's going to be done.
Will it be in a building big enough to hold the number of people that will be concerned?
It's going to be in the ballroom of the Coonamessett.
That's right.
That's where we're gonna have it, actually.
And we'll be catering it.
Now put my hearing aids in.
We'll have microphones, we'll have it all set up. Yeah, absolutely, we'll be having public meetings. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. And then if we're going to do that, should we move ahead with our
Second
You
motion.
go ahead.
second motion?
You've got the edited version.
I move that there be placed on the town ballot for September 8, 2016 special town election, a question to see if the town will vote to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds in order to purchase the Coonamessett Inn.
Motion?
Second?
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, none, the ayes have it. We have a building now. No, I'm just kidding. Long ways to go. Excuse me?
Yeah, and you voted unanimously.
Right.
So it required two-thirds.
Right,
Yeah.
yep.
The next item is a report from the police department. Chief Dutton?
Thank you, but I don't know if we have a fund for this yet.
That's the start of the seed money, let's go.
We don't have a process yet, but your offer has been noted, but save this.
We'll hold on to it. We got it all set, Mr. Sue, so we can take care of that one.
$1 million? That's awfully generous.
Chief Dutton?
Good evening. This is the second quarter report for the ongoings at the police department. For the total of, we have 58 funded positions. That's going to change on Thursday, the 28th, 2016, with the retirement of a 35-year veteran, Officer Kevin Kinsella. It will be his last day. Sad to see Kevin move into that retirement stage. He's a truly dedicated, outstanding police officer, and he has served this community well for 35 years. That being said, we are going to have a small gathering to celebrate his career on Friday, the 29th at 10 o'clock at the police department. I have one officer that's currently deployed somewhere in the world. They can't tell me where. I have one officer who recently went out on family medical leave because he had a baby girl. I have two officers currently out line of duty. And on August 1st, 2016, we have two student officers who will be attending the Randolph Police Academy. Cody Murray is one of them. Cody Murray is the son of retired police detective Robert Murray. And Alexander Bush is the other student officer. And they'll be attending the 26-week academy, expected to graduate sometime January 2017, in which they will return and do 15 weeks field training, so we'll have them sometime next summer on the road. So we're excited about that. So we basically right now have a total of 52 officers available to work along with myself. The records department, I changed the hours when we hired a new records clerk. Seems to be working well. The new hours that have been implemented in the records department are from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I did this, the previous hours were 8 to 4. They were like a banker's hours. So I did this so that the new hours would serve the community much better for those who work till 5 o'clock at night and need to get some reports. And it seems to be working well so far. So we're going to continue with that. Also this year, I was able to hire some seasonal officers, which, in my opinion, we did really well. They are outstanding, and I've heard nothing but positives. We hired a total of 5 seasonal officers. I have one in Woods Hole, who's Elson Costa. I have a Joseph Foley and a Caitlin Kester. They're assigned to the Old Silver Beach. Sean Lowe, those of you walking Main Street, or work on Main Street, Sean's on Main Street. And I have a David McGraw, who's up in Falmouth Heights. And I, again, have heard nothing but positive from the citizens in the community, and that's what I hired them for. So they're doing a great job. And I'm also pleased to announce, I think my last meeting I told you that Officer Bradley had recouped. He is back to work with us this summer, and he's working the evening shift in a cruiser. He works Thursday through Sunday for us. And again, we're happy to have Richard back. Detective Division. Our detectives are investigating. We've been very busy from April 1st to July 1st. We've had 7 sexual assaults, 9 commercial B&Es, 32 residential break-in and enterings, 87 larcenies, and fraud and ID theft, 26 seems to be up. Our narcotics activity, we've had 16 undercover buys, 8 warrant arrests, 5 search warrants. Seizures, we've seized $80,000 in cash, 1 motor vehicle, and 1 handgun. And we have 3 indictments in the Superior Court and 1 indictment in federal court. Some of the criminal charges that are related to the drugs is distribution of a Class A, B, and D narcotic, possession of a Class A, B, and D narcotic, trafficking heroin, trafficking in cocaine, drug violations in school zones, a career criminal act. That's the federal one. That's the person we charge as a career criminal and has gone to federal court. And, of course, firearm offenses. And the narcotics that were purchased, heroin, cocaine, and marijuana. On the heroin, from April 10th to July 23rd, so far we've had this year, it started before April, 54 overdoses. 4 overdoses resulted in death. The police department has served, it's called a Section 35. That's where a family member can go to court when an individual needs to be committed to a drug rehab or a hospital. Family members are instructed or can go to court and explain to the judge that this person can't take care of themselves. And the police department has served 41 Section 35s. We've continued the home visits with Sergeant Semino and counselors from Gosnell. We've done 41 home visits since April. 8 people have accepted treatment. 3 overdose victims have been saved by police with the Narcan. Because usually when someone overdoses, they call the fire department, and we end up tagging along or are there. So the rest of the overdoses were taken care of by the fire department, and we continue to work very strong to try to quell the overdose, the heroin problem in this community. The other piece that we're working on is the mental health issue, which has also risen over the years. For instance, last year, 2015, we had 143 calls for service to deal with mental health. So far, from April 20th to July 24th, we've had 47 calls for service to deal with mental health, a total so far of 96 calls for service. Mark Abbott from the Falmouth Human Services and Officer Tyler Nabon have done 26 home visits. And this has to do with multiple calls. This is the calls that we've had multiple calls to several homes, and they've gone to assist those individuals to get them some services that they need. Some of the people that we've gone to talk with have already sought or were assisted in seeking services through the Department of Mental Health. Calls for services. These calls are from April 3rd to July 14th. Self-initiated calls, we've had 4,243 calls compared to 2015, where we had 3,461. That's up by 782. And if you recall, the self-initiated calls are the calls that the officers on the street are making. And that volume has gone up because of the 11 new officers that we hired last year that are very eager and out there doing their job. Dispatch calls, 5,044 calls compared to last year, 4,919. So we're up about 125 calls for calls that people are calling into the police station, for a total of 9,278. Basically, we're up 10.82% from last year in calls. Domestics. From March through July, we've had 153 domestic calls, 21 restraining order violations, 56 restraining orders have been served, and our domestic violence specialist has served 94 victims from March 1st through the July 17th. We held our 16th Police Academy, so now we have well over 500 people who have gone through the academies, which met every Thursday for 10 weeks. And this class was a little smaller than the others, and we had a total of 26 students graduate, and they graduated on June 2nd. We will be holding another one this fall, so if you watch our website or watch our electronic signs, that information will be out there. The police department was also picked, we're very happy and honored, for the Arbor Day celebration back in April, and we're most appreciative of all the effort to enhance the grounds at the police department. It's absolutely gorgeous. A lot of work was done. We'd like to recognize Mr. Jeremiah Pearson from the Forestry Division, who helped and worked diligently to design the plans. Special thanks goes out to all the employees of the Highway Department, the Park Department, for assisting with the planting, the mulching. Also, we have to extend a heartfelt thanks to Nellie Emu, the Falmouth Beautification Council, for assisting the parks, planting, the weeding, the pruning, the watering. It just goes on and on and on. It doesn't end. But it's absolutely beautiful. And again, the best part, we're having the students from the Mellon Hall come over and plant the plants. That was a lot of fun that day, and we hope they come back again. As well as the principal, Nancy Ashworth, she got to go for a ride, as well as did I in the bucket truck. So there's a great view from the police department if you're 60 feet in the air, so nice water view. But again, all those pictures and all that fun stuff was, it's on our Facebook page, all the pictures and everything else. We had the Memorial Day event to honor police officers have fallen in the line of duty, especially Samuel Pierce here in Falmouth. That was on March 18th. Again, it was a very solemn day, and we also recognized Deputy Sheriff John Robert Cutfela, who died in Florida. Just a note, so far this year, 69 officers have given their lives in 2016. We also had a tree dedication for John Robert on June 23rd. Family, friends, and the public community came, police, fire. It was actually an idea from Brian Dale, the former superintendent, who actually it was his son who had the idea. Brian Dale brought it forward. His son Patrick had the idea, and they were going to donate a tree, and they didn't really know where they were going to donate this tree to, so they thought they would donate it at the police department in John Roberts' name, and we were happy to accept it. And now it has become part of our little memorial park that we have over there. And again, the tree was donated and planted, and Clover Monument donated a nice plaque, and the family was very appreciative of it too, as all the men and women of the Falmouth Police Department. Some of the other events that have passed us and been very successful, the street fair, again, went off without a hitch again this year. We're very pleased. Barnstable County Fair just wrapped up last night. Again, another successful event. One that was held recently was held by the No Place for Hate. They held a silent vigil on Thursday, July 14th, 2016 at the Village Green from 7 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. to express solidarity with victims of the recent deadly violence that has occurred in this country in St. Paul, Baton Rouge, and Dallas, Texas. The men and women of the Falmouth Police Department were proud and honored to stand with this community. The vigil reinforces the bond that this police department has with this community. It really did. And I also attended an event tonight at the rec center, which was wonderful. All the children that were there and the community that donated for that event to just show respect and say thank you to the men and women wearing the uniform here in Falmouth. So I believe it was very successful. A lot of kids, they were having a blast coloring, and I haven't seen everything they've colored, but I understand it's all going to be delivered to the police department. So, upcoming events, National Night Out next Tuesday. If you want to dunk the chief, there is going to be a dunk tank. I'm not saying I'm going in it yet, but it felt really good last year. But it is August 2nd at the police station from 5 to 8 p.m. So, please. And we're also working with New Balance on the road race, making sure it's another safe event this year. And that's my report. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Fireworks? 4th of July, how was that weekend?
Oh, 4th of July, yeah. Went off very, very well. We had some very minor incidents. So minor, I didn't even have it in the report. I believe our traffic plan is getting better each year. I want to say sometime around 11:30, the roads were really clear. So it's a lot of work to get all those guests that we invite here out of town, but I think we're getting it, and I think it helps. But no, all in all, it was a very busy weekend. It was perfect weather. It was chamber weather. Perfect. Chamber weather. So there were a lot of people here, but everything went well.
Great, thank you.
Quick question related to the opioid crisis. You mentioned that there were 41 Section 35s, which will basically be getting folks who need a bed. And I'm wondering if you have trouble finding beds for folks that the department thinks need a safe place.
We do. There are only so many beds. And we're looking at some other options like some other towns are looking at. It may end up being that we transport them some distance. But it's a community effort, or it's a team effort, and those discussions are happening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay. And I just want to say one final thing, seriously. I want to thank the board, the town manager, and the Falmouth community for all the support they have given the men and women of this police department over the past several weeks from all the tragedies that have happened across the country. It's really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chief Dunn.
All right, next is our Water and Wastewater Monthly Report. Mr. Jack?
Oh, yeah, we need to get the projector on first of all, right?
I think he started that already. It just takes a while. Yep.
Okay, we're good.
I hope my voice makes it this evening. As you can see, I have some laryngitis. So if you can't hear me, I might have to repeat myself, but just let me know, please. Going to do this a little bit differently this evening. Normally I do the water report first, then I do the wastewater. Going to reverse it around a little bit. Concurrently with the water and wastewater project, we had 3 other smaller projects that have been running right along with them. Their combined total for the 3 is under $10 million. I'm sorry, can people hear me? Okay. So I wanted to give, we're nearing completion on those, and I wanted to give a brief report on each of those as well. So with the Little Pond Sewer Project, 20.4 million was the original contract. We're at 21.3 right now, so it's about 962,000 above the original. It says 61% complete here, but that was for June. We're at the end of July, so it's actually well over 70% complete. And there is that possibility that the mains will be in the ground before the end of the year. The actual final paving, though, will not be able to take place until the spring because these roads are still being excavated. This is the cash flow diagram. As you can see, the original budget is the blue line, dark blue line on the bottom. The lighter green line on the top is the adjusted budget, and 13 million, or the red line, is where we are. This is month 14 of a total of 26 months, but as I said, the project will be finishing up earlier. The recharge beds were one project. This is formerly known as Site 7, which is just south of Thomas Landers Road. This project was necessary for these 2 additional beds to go in. They're the infiltration beds that will handle the 260,000 gallon flow for the Little Pond Sewer Service area. So the original contract was 1.5 million. The adjusted value was actually a credit, so it's 1.4. It's 99% complete now. They have some work to do in the fall on the landscaping as well as the flow meter, and they're also going to be a little bit of work on 3 of the other infiltration beds that we have. But presently, that's a 3.5% as a credit on the project overall. The existing lift stations, these lift stations, we have 4 of the larger ones. These were not done in over 25 years, so this is the first major upgrade they've had. So it was pump replacements in order to handle the additional flow for the sewer service area. So these are the Shivers Pond lift station over on Academy Lane, the Jones Palmer lift station at Terhune, Jones Road, and the Robbins Road lift station at the head of the harbor. It's 95% complete right now. Original contract was 1.56 million, currently at 1.61, and that's a change of 2.9% as an increase in cost. Wastewater plant upgrade was necessary in order to accommodate the additional flow, so it included upgrades and repairs to the SBRs. We're sequencing batch reactors. Those are the 2 main processes that we have at the plant, in addition to the sludge building for processing sludge and the chemical control systems. So we had to upgrade all of that. That was 3.7 million originally, 3.8 now. That's about a 2.9% increase in cost, and that one is 81% complete right now. So for Mara Vista and a Little Pond Sewer Service area, they're working on Mara Vista now and have been over June and July in order to install the trunk main. They've also got other crews that are working on low-pressure sewers as well as some of the gravity sewers on the side streets. The main on Mara Vista from Randolph down to Iroquois was done and completed back in May, and then they proceeded north from Randolph, heading up to where Mara Vista breaks off with Mara Vista Extension. They've crossed that point. They'll be heading north on Mara Vista Extension during the end of July and August, and then when they get that done, they'll come back. They have to go up Mara Vista toward the Falmouth Fish Market. However, when they're on Main Street, they had already done the southern portion going down from Main Street. So it's not as though they have to do all of that. They only have about 1/3 of it to do. And then, of course, all the side streets, but that'll be the end of the main lines. Paving restoration on the low-pressure area, which is south of Iroquois for the most part, is currently going on now. The upper reach will not be done, though, until the spring, as well as Main Street. The Alfonso Mall lift stations, they're working on the electrical, doing the coatings and the landscape and the HVAC. The generators are already in. The Robbins Road lift station was part of the bigger project we had on the lift stations, and that one is already complete. A lot of people ride over these manhole covers every day. Nobody's ever looked down. So this is just so that you can see what is actually in a manhole. Steps, obviously, to be able to get in and out and access it for maintenance. Down at the bottom, you can see that there are actually 2 lines coming into the manhole. one leaving the manhole, and the green and white pipe you see on the right is known as a drop. So that's called a drop manhole. It means that the main came into the manhole higher than the elevation of the bench. So it's one way of getting it in there and getting it down to the bottom. This is the Robbins Road lift station. You can see the lift station's right here in the center. It's that gray cylindrical object. So that is a submerged lift station that goes down several feet into the ground, has a generator built into it as well, and of course that's right across from the condominiums there, the timeshares. These are the recharge beds south of Thomas Landers. So you have Thomas Landers Road up here, and these are the beds here. There's two separate and distinct beds that are intended to handle 260,000 gallons a day. This is at the main plant. This is one of the sequencing batch reactors. So the decanter is over on the left. That device will float with the flow and the level on the tank and be able to draw off wastewater from it. Then we also have the mixers and diffusers that were installed in there. So this is actually in service on this picture here. This is just some of the chemical feed equipment that was being installed at the main plant. This is sodium hydroxide, which is used for pH adjustment on the final effluent for the filters when we put it through the filters for D-night. Service Road, anyone who's been up on Service Road, over the last several decades, there was a noticeable odor that was coming from a manhole. All of the wastewater coming up to the plant comes up Service Road in one main, gets to that manhole, and has an opening there where it breaks off and goes down toward the plant by gravity from a force main. So it's been an odor problem for years as part of the main plant upgrade. This is a biofilter that was installed on that system there. Alphonse Lift Station, down the bottom right. This is what it looks like today. So we have the wet wells out in front, and then the building doors and windows, they'll all be going in. Iroquois, this is just one of the gravity mains that's going in. This one wasn't too particularly deep at this point, and you can see a service. This is a horizontal service going across the road that they have to be able to try to navigate through with trench boxes all the time. This is just temporary paving that was being put on Mara Vista after construction. So this is the map that you're used to seeing, and of course, if you pay attention in the blue circle there, up here at the top where you see the yellow line, this is down here is Iroquois, and this is the gravity main, the trunk main that was going in up to Spring Bars Road here. Now they're already up to here and going past that area. This is the other area in Mara Vista that is already done that you'll see, and then there's some side streets and service connections that were installed as well. So here you see the mains already up here, just going past where Mara Vista is. They'll be finishing this route up here and coming back to put this little piece in right here. They've already got these mains going in, these mains are in, and of course the blue represents service laterals that were already installed as well. So the yellow lines are the lines that have the mains in, the blue represents where the service laterals have been installed, and the red lines are the remaining gravity lines to go in.
I'm going to interrupt you and actually ask Amy, partly for your voice, if she could just report briefly on the meeting that was held at the high school.
Yes.
Sure. You want that now?
Yep, just to finish up the sewer point. It was just a fantastic meeting. I just wanted to let people know about it.
Thank you. The town's Department of Public Works worked with the Mara Vista Falmouth Heights Neighborhood Association to host a couple of things in the same evening last month. There was a presentation, I gave a presentation on the status of the Little Pond Sewer Service Area project at 7 o'clock, and then that was preceded actually by an expo that the Mara Vista Falmouth Heights Neighborhood Association put together in collaboration with at least the Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure I'm not crediting some others who ought to be credited, but the expo was great because there were plumbers there were excavators there, electricians, banks, and the manufacturer of the grinder pump that the town selected. And I had a table there, and I got to talk with a lot of people. So it was a great idea, I thought, of the neighborhood associations to make ourselves available ahead of time and not just stand on the stage and talk. Overall, it was very well attended, and hopefully people got some good information out of it.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, because I don't know if my voice would have held up long enough tonight. For Long Pond, 40.9 was the original contract. 40.6 is where we're at now. So we're still working off of a credit. 66% complete as of June, so it's over 70% complete now. Potential change orders is about 66,000 coming up. Cash flow, the green line is the projected Methuen value at the start of the contract. The blue line, the dark blue straight line, is the adjusted value, and the red line represents the payments made to the contractor thus far. So as you can see with all the projects, they're running very close together. Poured a lot of concrete again, another 900 yards. That was 9 separate pours. We're going to be finishing up on the concrete over the next month or two, so you won't see those volumes. The raw water pump station, foundations in, structural walls were complete. They're actually working on the veneer walls now. It's going to be a little bit difficult to see in the photographs, but they're actually working on the veneer. And the walls are also complete for the ozone tanks, as well as the clear well and backwash tanks. The elevated slabs are done on the backwash tanks, but not quite complete on the clear well tank. The exterior walls, they're probably 80% complete on those. Mechanical piping is an ongoing process, and then some of the actual processes are going to be installed in the filters and in the DAF units as well. This picture over here on the right, the 1750 kilowatt generator, looks small until I show you further in the pictures. That's a very large, powerful generator. It has to be able to handle that plant as well as the pump station. So there's a line that goes out there to the pump station, because it doesn't matter if the plant runs if you don't have the water coming from the pond. This is the filter piping gallery on the exterior side of the filter where the effluent comes out. And these here are some historical photographs. So this is looking to the northeast from the corner of the building near the rear, and these would be garage bays going in here. So that was April, May. They had the structural block up, and then here it is now. So they made considerable amount of progress overall. That generator I was talking about, that's not part of this building. There it is sitting back there. So this ought to give you an idea of just how large that generator actually is. Now these were the pump chambers looking from the southeast to the northwest. This area here, these were the backwash and clean water tanks. And these here will be actually buried. So on the next picture you'll see how they're covered up, and they have an elevated slab that goes on top of them. So that's where they were, right here. And this here, all area here is the elevated slab over the wash water tanks, the backwash tank, and the clear well. Now that heading says today. That was actually last week. This is today. So you can see they're taking the staging off. This is from the northeast looking to the southwest. So this here is the clear well slab there, and all of that is going to be underground. You won't even see any of that when it's all done. Ozone building in May, and you can see right there it's just one cube structure. And then here it is today. That's the original cube structure, and the other building has already been added to it on the side. And that too is in the back of the building, and that's the generator sitting up on the top of the hill. I'm giving you all this for reference, 2 reference points later. You'll see what I'm talking about. Plant interior, this is looking from the eastern end of the plant toward the west. In the middle here, where you see the wood railings, those are the filters. Back over here are the DAF tanks. These would be restroom areas, but you can see here they've already started to put the interior coatings on the walls, and that's what this picture is showing here. And this is the garage area from the inside looking out on the lower left. So this is looking east to west at the building, and the backwash tanks and wash water tanks are over here. These are 250,000 gallon tanks. This is the 800,000 gallon clear well, where after all the water is treated, it will go into this tank. These corridor areas that you see here are baffle walls going in. So these were the forms for the baffle walls at that time. These tank walls are done. The slab's already on top in this picture. And now you can see the backwash tanks are over here on the left, and then this gray slab in the front is over top of the clear well. This I wanted you to see because this is the end of that clear well tank that doesn't have its elevated slab on it yet. So I just wanted you to show you the results of the baffling on the walls. You can see all these, and what it is, it's just like a maze. So water has to come in, go down each end, and work its way back and through and go around. And that prevents a laminar flow. It's like if you have a pool and you have an inlet pipe where the water's coming in, outlet pipe where the water goes out, theoretically the whole thing can short circuit and go straight across the surface. So you don't get the proper mixing, proper times on it. Raw water pump station over here on the left is back in May. These were the forms, this was the wet well here. These were the forms for the building foundation that was being poured. And then today the forms are done. The beige that you see in there is actually the veneer CMU blocks going on it now. Motor control center, this is only about half of the equipment that goes into that room. It's a very large room. So this is some of the equipment that it takes just to actually physically control the plant electrically. This is interesting. This was the plant back in February, and I only did this so you could see just a little bit of snow right there, because I know it's muggy outside, but the snow will be here soon enough.
Thanks.
So this was the plant in May, and right here you see the front retaining wall so that it takes the imposing nature of the structure out of the equation. We didn't have to build it this way, but we chose to so that it's not, so aesthetically it has a much better appearance overall. And that's where we are now. So this is the CMU veneer that's going on, and you can see that it's got tracings so that we have on the bottom a border and borders going up certain areas along the wall and the cornice, and then the windows and the doors will finally go in. And then normally this is where I stop, and you can see it's actually starting to look like that. But then I had a couple more. So this is an aerial shot, and back here is the generator near the garage area in the back of the building. This is the ozone building here. These are the backwash and wash water tanks here. This is the 800,000 gallon clear well going in here. That was the front retention wall that you saw. This is the back retention wall. That is Long Pond, and this is the road that goes out to the raw water pump station, which is right over here, and you can't see it in this shot. Here you can see the raw water pump station up here in the corner and the road going out. But just so that you can see the overall size of the plant, this here is a very large crane, and it makes it look like a Tonka truck sitting out there.
And all that in the bottom end is going to be buried.
All of this down here, all of this here will all be buried, so you won't even know that that's there on those tanks. So aesthetically, the plant will look very attractive when it's done. Now, normally, I would also stop here. However, you have to bear with me for a minute because I couldn't get this in the presentation, but I have one more that I did want to show you.
The ancient drawing.
Great.
Nice touch.
Spectacular.
Thank you very much. Any
Now
questions?
I'm trying to figure out how they can do that fly through so they can go through a building. I won't have to talk. I did want to say, though, that all of the projects are going very well. I'm very, very pleased with them. I want to thank Amy Lowell and Steve Rafferty for all their diligence, their technical expertise, hard work. It's been a great team effort, so we're very pleased across the board, but I want to make sure to recognize all they do on all of this, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Amy, Dave?
Sorry to be so late.
All right, next we have some interviews. We have for the Conservation Commission, for an alternate position, we have one application.
I'll take that.
I'll do that. Mark Gurney, you come forward, please introduce yourself. Tell us why you'd like to be an alternate on the Conservation Commission.
Hi, I'm Mark Gurney. I just moved here to town last month from Mashpee, where I've lived for 13 years. Part of those 13 years, actually the last 5, I was on Mashpee's Conservation Commission. And I think I'm a particularly strong candidate for your Conservation Commission now. I'm very familiar with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. I think as an alternate member for a while, hopefully just a short while before it opens up as a full-time member, I'll be able to become more familiar with some aspects of your bylaws, which are different from Mashpee's, and have some little bends, twists that I'm aware of, but I'd like to get more familiar with. I should say I probably attended a dozen of your Conservation Commission's meetings the last 3 or 4 years. Often a subject will come up which interests me personally, and I'll come by and have a look. I think also being an alternate will give me a little time to understand a little bit more about the processes you use. For instance, had these people on Ashuapunk Pond, you heard tonight, lived on the east side of the pond instead of the west side, they would have come to Mashpee's Conservation Commission. They would come with a notice of intent. We would have approved it for sure. We'd been given us order of conditions, and that would be it. They don't have to go to the selectmen. It's, frankly, a pretty routine activity, and I'm not quite sure why the selectmen have to deal with it. You've got plenty of things to deal with of maybe more momentous character than that. But nonetheless, understanding those processes, I think, is important to understand how it works. I think that's all I want to say. I'm certainly open to any questions or comments you'd like to make.
Well, I just have a question about electron hole plasma and what would happen if you take a magnet. About electron hole plasma, and you take a magnet and wave it over it.
Well, that was a weird subject. I ended up going to school at Princeton, and they had these huge machines, you know, like a cyclotron, tremendous machines, and I worked on them for 1 year. In fact, that first year I was there, and I had gone home for Christmas in Maryland, and I got a call 2 days before Christmas. You're on the machine, you got it for the next week. Get up here.
Do something.
Which I did. Worked on it for a week and said, this is not for me. I moved into semiconductor physics. It's electron hole plasma. It's related to semiconductor physics, and actually ended up working on imaging chips, like in your camera, or like in the satellite that goes ahead and looks around to see what's happening.
Any other questions? He answered mine fine.
I got the technical end.
Thanks.
I'm wondering if you like to work with homeowners and help them through these complicated processes.
Well, that's an interesting topic, and the reason it's interesting, I'll talk a little bit about it. I've noticed in the last 3 or 4 years that our consultants, which happen to be in many cases the same either here or in Mashpee, have gotten much better at dealing with the standards, the resource areas, and the requirements, therefore, in notices of intent. I've also noted that Falmouth is reputed to be sort of tough, certainly compared to Mashpee, and maybe it has to do with the process. In Mashpee, we don't have we have an agent, but he's the administrator and the agent. We're not big enough. We have one guy. And any applicant comes in and talks with them before any notice of intent is, and sort of says, hey, this is what I want to do. And Drew will say, well, yeah, but you can't do that, but maybe you can do this. And they work it out. A lot of it is worked out before the commission sees it. And that makes it good for us as commissioners. It makes it good for the homeowner because he doesn't end up paying his consultants iteration after iteration to try to get it right. So back to the question, I haven't had much opportunity to work individually with homeowners, and I'm not even sure that's appropriate. I mean, as a commissioner, at least in Mashpee, my job was to judge whether this application met the standards. And I certainly couldn't go and help him say, well, this is what has to meet the standards, and then come before the commission and advocate for him. That would be, I believe, totally inappropriate. I think that's the job of the agent or the administrative assistant to work strongly with that. And the agent, of course, working with the commission, gets a good feel for what the commission generally thinks about what ought to be done and what's acceptable and what's not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Gurney? Dr. Gurney?
Well, just a comment, I think that's pretty much the way the Falmouth Conservation Department works as well.
I've seen Jen do that numerous times.
Yeah, so they're pretty proactive in advising, whoever the applicant's representatives are in working out a plan that everybody can agree to and meets the desires of the particular property owner. It's a collaborative effort.
I think that's the way it ought to be done.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See, I move that we appoint Mark Gurney to a term on the Conservation Commission ending June 30th of 2019.
And this is
an alternate position. Okay.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Congratulations, and thank you for stepping
Thank
forward.
you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we have, for the EDIC, we have one vacancy, a term ending June 3rd, 2019, and we have two applicants. First is Michael Kasparian.
I don't think this was on.
It doesn't microphone into here, it's just for at home.
Oh, I see, okay. I'm going to pull it in a little bit. So, well, good evening. I'm glad we finally get to go on. So, I'm Michael Kasparian. I'm president of the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. I was intrigued about the position and wanted to come out, put my name forward, serving on the board of directors. I think because of my position at the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce, as well as my experience prior to that, I would add a lot to the board. I think that one of the things that is important in this position are people on the board that are willing to collaborate and have the experience and the ability to collaborate. The Falmouth Chamber of Commerce is committed to developing and advancing the commercial, retail, industrial, economic, professional, cultural, educational, and civic interests of Falmouth. That's right in our mission statement. Two of those items, industrial and economic, pertain specifically to this board. Both the Chamber and the EDIC has to work closely together in order to spur and develop economic development. And I feel as though both those organizations should be working even more closely with the town of Falmouth in a long-range comprehensive plan. Job creation and workforce housing are crucial to the long-term viability of Falmouth. We talk about it all the time, and I see these two groups working closely together to get that done. I think the one question we have to ask ourselves, and we ask ourselves this all the time in the Chamber, is do we want Falmouth to just become a high-priced retirement community? Or do we want it to be a diversified town that can support working families as well? We all know the price of housing goes up. Jobs are scarce, good-paying jobs, meaningful jobs, and housing, as we know, is scarce, really challenging. As hotel rooms diminish, we talked tonight about possibly the town buying the Coonamessett Inn, and possibly those hotels going away. There's 17 rooms there. We're down to under 1,100 hotel rooms in Falmouth from over 2,000. And disposable income spent by visitors decreases, rooms tax revenue goes down, making it more difficult for seasonal business to thrive, let alone survive. We have to be looking at other types of jobs to create. So, I know the board composition has different areas of background. The two areas that I could satisfy would be in the financial background, the 21-year background in financial services, serving in executive positions in the banking industry, also including community housing. For those of you who don't know, banks are required through the 1970s, the Community Reinvestment Acts were enacted to prohibit redlining. And what that did was had banks redirect deposits back into the community, mostly in low-income housing, small business lending, and I served for 4 years as the community reinvestment officer for the bank that I worked for 21 years in Providence, Rhode Island, making sure that economic development was created and opportunities given to low and moderate income families and business people. The Chamber of Commerce is responsible for creating and meeting a budget every year, which we do. We collaborate with organizations for the achievement of mutual goals. We work with the town, we work with all the nonprofits in town. We're 650 members strong, and we have the ability to communicate and work together to advance the mission of the EDIC. The bigger picture also is driving tourism, and I can see the EDIC being involved in that as well and collaborating with the Falmouth Chamber. I think the last piece, of course, is I think you're looking for somebody who has enthusiasm, ability, the know-how, and really wants to roll up their sleeves and get the work done. So if given the opportunity and the privilege to serve on this board, I certainly would give 100% commitment, and I would like to see a closer relationship between the Chamber and the EDIC. So any questions at all, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Kasparian? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
And Christopher Simler? Good evening.
Chris Simler, 65 Walker Street, Precinct 2. It's a hard act to follow. I'm new to the town, been here about a year, been vacationing down here since the 2000s. My wife's family's been here for a while. What I bring to the EDIC is a totally different perspective. I'm a project manager for a large engineering construction design firm in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and there's so much innovation going around and technologies. And then when I was working with Mike on the new bus station, where my firm represents Mass DOT, and we're helping management, I was really impressed with the type of committee that he runs. I'm used to dealing with building committees for a senior center, a school. The ability to be on a committee where you get to pick some things and look at different opportunities is really exciting and challenging. Just some ideas that where I come from, as you know, Cambridge is like the heart of life sciences, and it's maxed out right now. And there are actually little pods going out to western Massachusetts. And with this great technology park you have, why can't one of those firms come down here, less square footage, square foot cost, and have a great living lifestyle, and only be an hour away, hour and 15 minutes from Boston. There's new tech. We're also, I'm working with the state of Rhode Island on a new curriculum master program, and one of the schools is looking at a technology and comprehensive education program. So down in Rhode Island, Electric Boat just got this huge contract for the next 20 years to build the next class of submarines. So they're teaming with the high school to teach welding and to make sure there's jobs like that. So looking at different opportunities, what does Falmouth have to offer? From the bike path, there's all these ideas. The photovoltaics. You have these great parking lots around here that are just, I know, for environmentally just burdensome in a heat spot, and they have all these coverings now you can put and develop energy. And so all these ideas, I think I bring, though I'm new, I defer to, your knowledge of the community, and I would enjoy the opportunity to bring this knowledge and challenges and work with the team. I'm very proactive, collaborative. I come from a military background, like to get something done, high integrity, and do my best for the community.
Questions? Ms. Moran?
Sure. I serve both on the EDIC board as well as being vice chair of the Board of Selectmen. And part of the challenges lately of the EDIC are really trying to manage our time in terms of the large projects that we have going. The board makeup, statutorily required, includes at least one member experienced in industrial development. That's something that industrial is a little bigger than usually think about Falmouth, so that's something that on the board we talk about how we're kind of stretching to cover that area. We have folks who are experienced in financial matters. That's another requirement. Chris is our treasurer, and we also have real estate matters covered. Jim is in real estate. I happen to also be a broker in addition to a lawyer. And municipal government, well, I cover that, being selectman. And also a member representative low-income people. Our chair does a lot of work in low-income development, has a great deal of expertise in development, and particularly low-income. So I kind of looked at this because the EDIC board didn't have a chance to interview you, but I remember you interviewed for a prior position.
Yes.
So I thought about the fit, and I am getting to my question. So what I did was I actually called your references for example, David Choi, who's an architect at Jacobs, and I just kind of want you to comment on the things that I learned. He advised that you are you're working on a project it's a $15 million charter school project, for example, so that has some municipal connection. And he said that with respect to many of the projects that you've been involved in, and Jacobs includes everything from environmental engineering, information technology, operations, maintenance, planning, and consulting, that you in particular had a remarkable talent to strategize before any budgets for projects got near being hit. In other words, that you had a particular reputation for controlling costs without being aggressive, and to actually control the costs in advance of any overruns. So can you just kind of give me a couple of examples of that directly?
Sure. I bring a proactive approach because I take it from my grandfather, who hated to do things twice as a kid, do it once, do it right, and I've always had that mindset. One example, UMass, the owner's project manager for a new power plant they're building, a 4.6 megawatt. So I have a team of folks, I'm working with the owner, but they're so strict on budgets and criticalness that the way we deal with contingencies, allowances, but we also, before the project even started, looked outside the box, where the university was looking at building a 2.5 megawatt power plant and then adding on to it 5 to 7 years later, 2.5 megawatts for a total of 5. Working with our power and energy group, I led an effort to say, we can build you, and that was $54 million. I can build you a 4.6 megawatt power plant in today's dollars for $26.5 million, just because of efficiencies and getting things the cost of money. The KIPP charter school, since that was a quasi-private school, they have to go get a construction loan. It's very strict with the banks, so they had to hold their budget. And when we did our first DD estimate, it was $1.6 million over budget. And the first thing people always want to do is cut scope, cut square footage, make the room smaller. And I refuse to do that because you're building a project for a certain purpose. So I challenge like the architects, the engineers to look at soft costs, those when you design steel at a certain point, it's so many, it's like 13 pounds per square foot at a certain stage, but the end price might be 10. Well, I try to push them, let's go with 11 right now, and push them out of their comfort zone. You just might have saved $600,000 by doing that and not taking the easy way out and chopping off the end of a building and saying, oh, we cut 5,000 square feet. So with the KIPP charter school, and also like working in Cranston, and they're on very strict budgets too, and how to do things right. I have that procurement certification from Massachusetts, the MCPPO, which allows me to do CM risk 149, 149A. And so I try to think outside the box. I used to be a contractor. I know the other side of the fence where they're...
Can I just stop you and interrupt? I apologize, but I just want to make sure I understand. So you know public procurement law?
I had the certification in Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Certified Public Procurement Officer, because in doing K through 12 schools and police stations, you have to have that certification.
Thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And so I use the different types of strategies. There's bidding strategies for procurement, deduct alternates, add alternates, the way you can position. My whole thing is transfer of risk. I want to transfer the risk not to my client, the owner, and also to control that risk and minimize it, because and by staying proactive, you mitigate things before they happen, thus avoiding the crisis, the change order, and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure those are the greatest examples, but there's a diverse group of projects I'm working on.
Just one final thing. Because the EDIC it's sort of been, we have some major projects going on, the solar project, you mentioned the train station, and the EDIC could be in a position, and hopes to be in a position going forward, to take on other major projects. There's even, the EDIC could do things like work with the senior center we talked about earlier, has a special, the chair's already talked about financial opportunities that might not otherwise be available. So the board is constantly stretching itself in terms of time to give as a volunteer organization, which would include supervising projects, and it seems like you have a tremendous amount of expertise in that area. So my question is, the 10 to 15 hours per month that you think you could give to this board, how, is that regular all year pretty much, or does your schedule fluctuate?
My schedule fluctuates, but it's usually I make a commitment. I'll stick by it and make it happen. I think one of my strengths is to multitask. I have right now 8 or 9 projects, probably $500 million of construction and projects going on with a staff of 12 or 14 in the Cambridge area, and I manage, and they're great. And I think I have the ability to know where to look, where to find through experience. So looking at a project, and I know, I just think with EDIC projects, any project over 1.5 million, you need to hire an honest project manager. I could bring that qualification, so you save that money. Then I saw there you guys are looking at a clerk of the works, which is great. I know how to manage a clerk of the works, what to ask for, what data to collect to be efficient, to protect the owner from claims, and to stay on top of things. So I think I built this efficiency in management, so I can work. Some months it might be 30 hours if it's needed, but a lot can be done behind the scenes and strategizing. But for physical meetings, I can commit to that.
Thank you.
And there's also one more thing I would say, private-public partnerships, the P3, is starting to take hold more in Massachusetts. It's not really allowed in public procurement, but it's being tested. UMass, Boston, is doing their first one for a residence hall. And I was just thinking the Commesset area, and that might be an opportunity for PPP. I don't have that definite knowledge, but I know people that are experts in it, how they write the leases and the pitfalls and what you got to look out for. But that could be an opportunity as a procurement to alleviate going for a bond and then having a lease arrangement or something like that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. Well, it's a tough position.
You're
We
not
have
kidding.
one vacancy and 2 phenomenal candidates that have very different strengths and backgrounds to offer.
Can I continue to talk the most?
Sure.
This, I think it's, obviously we have highly qualified candidates. And particularly Michael, who is such a leader in town, not only with the chamber, but where he's moved the chamber since he came into that office. And as a board member of the EDIC, I just kind of took an insider's view and really just trying to serve the needs of that board, which, is just very stretched with the board that it has now. We're very much looking forward to the new person that's coming in to complete the team. And looking at the makeup of the board and the statutory requirements that it have certain elements, I know Jay Zavala, the former head of the chair, obviously an important and active member on the EDIC. I took into consideration the fact, number one, in that narrow aspect, Mike and Jay have similar backgrounds, but also the fact that already sitting on the EDIC board is an opportunity to work closely with the chamber because of Jay's background and frankly Michael's willingness and where he is leading his board. So that's why I took a very close look at Chris Simler. That's why I had in mind the dire need of the EDIC for some oversight for its projects, someone with some expertise. We have been looking at clerk of the works and other options in that regard. And I think that Chris Simler just personifies the fit and the important need for the EDIC with the two large projects we have going on right now and with potential projects coming into the future. So for that reason, I want to nominate Chris Simler, or make a motion rather, that Chris be appointed to the EDIC.
Second?
Motion second, further discussion? Mr. Patterson?
I just want to mention, I mean, I know I've talked to Michael about this. We have this enormous capacity fiber optic backbone, but it's not connected to any residents, connected to all the municipal buildings and schools and Woods Hole Oceanographic. But it makes this a particularly attractive area for startup businesses in the IT business world. And it seems like you have some connections up there. And I know we were even looking at a piece of, actually EDIC was looking at a piece of town property that's just south of of our landfill, which is connected to the tech park. And it just seemed like with your connections out of Cambridge, you probably could help us network with the kind of businesses, as you were pointing out, that would really welcome relocating, in Falmouth, and give us some of that job growth that Michael was actually talking about, Michael Kasparian was talking about, which we sorely need. There's no question about that. I mean, Michael's spot on in terms of the growth needs of Falmouth. But it sounds like you might have some key connections, Chris, that would help us bring some of those people down here and get them to invest in Falmouth. So I think I like what Sue's saying in terms of the needs of the EDIC itself and your fit into that particular group of people.
And I would just add to that, I mean, to be really blunt, the town is already benefiting significantly from Michael's expertise.
Yes.
I mean, you're here and you've been doing work that is benefiting the town, and you clearly, I think, have the connections, with the EDIC as well as other organizations to bring all of that expertise to bear. So I see this as an opportunity, because we only have the one spot, to bring in sort of, somebody new while we're still, and I certainly would encourage the EDIC, and I think they already know this, to continue to work and draw upon that connection with the chamber. But I see this as an opportunity to bring somebody new in that is hitting all the points that you're raising. So.
I'm likely to go along with the rest of the board, but I'm also sorry to not be able to give more deference to the years that Michael's already given to the town. And
exactly.
I find that very hard not to go along, but I also do understand that the idea of the support that Chris can give because of his background really could be very useful at the time we are in right now. So no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah,
thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have an application for an alternate position. We have one vacancy, an alternate position, term ending June 30th, 2019. We have one applicant, Lee Drescher.
Good evening. I'm Lee Drescher. I have been serving on the now defunct Historical Commission for, I think, maybe around a year. And I care very much about preserving this beautiful town. We're just so lucky to have a town like this. I got involved in this with the Nimrod Club. And being on the Historical Commission, I now am familiar with a lot of what is going on in town. Woods Hole, the Coast Guard base where they're constructing a new building, and Woods Hole is really being highly impacted at the moment with the Coast Guard as well as the Steamship Authority. And I also realize that sometimes you'd like to preserve something historically, but it just doesn't make sense. So you have to look at both sides of the picture. It's interesting that the Coonamessett came up tonight. It's just so wonderful that you care about preserving the Coonamessett. I actually was thinking of spearheading a group or would love to see maybe the Nimrod become a senior center. That was vaguely discussed, but if you could just take the Nimrod and preserve some of the old artifacts, the fireplace, there's one really beautiful old room. Why not have a couple of old rooms in a building for some old people? And that's probably about all I have to say. I would be happy to serve your town. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions, Trish?
Sure. Can you tell me about any particular experience, other than you've already discussed, in the areas of historic commission dealings, historic preservation, beyond serving as the volunteer that you just mentioned?
I have always loved old things. I was in the antique business for a number of years. And the decorating business, I've done construction projects with parts of old buildings. In my neighborhood, they were tearing a house down. I persuaded Mr. Newton to save parts of that house. And I just believe in saving whatever we can to preserve the past.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
I move that we appoint Lee Drescher to the alternate position on the Historical Commission for a term ending June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. The ayes have it.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Okay, and next we have the application from the Rotary Craft, or a request to allow the Rotary to put up a craft fair sign the week of August 29th to September 4th.
You saved the best for last, almost.
Thank you. Again, Rotary really appreciates the support of the selectmen. And this is our 16th craft fair. We put up signs, sandwich signs, basically across the entire town, particularly at about 11 locations. It's the same number of signs, the same locations have been for the last 3 years, and we put also some banners at the Inner Harbor area where we carry out the craft fair. The craft fair serves as the main income for our group, and its income goes to scholarships and to groups within the town. So we would like to have you support that as you have in the past. It does require a variance from you for us to put those signs on public property, and so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the variance.
Second.
We motion is second to approve the 11 sandwich signs. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you for sticking with us.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bill, for enduring.
Individual selectmen's reports.
Well, if I could, I'll jump in real quick. I just want to mention that I went to a Lawrence Windows project meeting, 2 of them actually, one with the contractor where they were going over the project and various aspects of it. They are doing really well, and we're getting a very nice project out of it. The windows, if you want to drive by that now, are actually are up in the front of the building, and a lot of the little technical details have been worked out, so they're going to move pretty quickly through the rest of it, and they are thinking that they're going to be done before school starts. They had until November 1st, but their progress is going along so well, and it's being so well managed. Just a couple of other things that the building committee is considering. One of the shades that they're taking down that they have to put back up, similar to what you see in the windows here, are 20 years old, and since the contractor already owns putting them up, we're thinking out of the contingency we're going to purchase the materials for about a third of the price of actually having done that themselves. Sort of work in progress. The other possible addition, this is still in consideration, but the gutters around the top of the building are made of wood for the most part. There's one section that's been replaced with extruded aluminum, but these are enormous gutters. These are not the ones that you put on your house. But there's a section in the middle of the U-shaped building where there's a building below it, and you can't get a lift truck in there to actually be able to go up there and replace those gutters. Well, in doing the windows contractor is going to have staging in there, and so we're really thinking about having them go ahead and replace it. If you look at those gutters from a window on the side, you'll see they're actually shrubs growing up out of the thing because they can't be cleaned readily either. So we know that they're rotted and that they should really get replaced. So that's just a trade-off that has to be made, but we are taking a look to make sure that the bonding will cover it. We're going to be the contingency is going to be more than adequate for this, and the schedule is moving very nicely. So I wanted to mention one other thing, the Lawrence Academy, when Andy Dufresne was here, he was pushing to get the cupola painted and what have you. It really came out very nicely, and the contractors finished the work for the most part, although he's coming back in September because he didn't want to fence out or screen out the fledgling of pigeons in the cupola and starve them to death. So he said, I'll come back in September and finish it up then. Very nice guy. And he even went ahead and painted the front doors of the building because they weren't freshly painted, and he didn't want the old-looking doors to be next to his beautifully painted portico. So the project was done and some gratis work thrown in as well. And it looks really terrific, and it's nice to see that done so it's not the eyesore that it was without any paint on it. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think I'll pass this week for the late hour.
Mr. Suso?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just to note, it was my pleasure to attend and participate in the groundbreaking for the West Falmouth Library expansion and renovation project on behalf of the town on Friday, July 15th. Private fundraising for this impressive project is continuing, and as the board is aware, you approved the last detail on the deed on the land swap there, so we're delighted to play a role and cheer that process forward. I want to thank members of the board for your excellent discussion, analysis, and insight in the strategic plan retreat this past Monday evening. I'm working with Jennifer Petit in finalizing and updating your final plan document to return to you for the final ratification in the near future. I'm also working with Jennifer in compiling proposed revised Town of Falmouth financial policies for your consideration at an upcoming meeting in either August or September. These policies have not been revised for many years. 2006 was the most recent, and they're much in need of an update. And I'd also like to bring for your consideration a formal investment policy. No such policy is currently in place. And lastly, I want to thank Mr. Daniel Wagner for his very generous contribution to the Falmouth Senior Center process. Quite extraordinary and unanticipated in terms of his check for $25,000. We will, I assure him, and all others who might be so inclined, that we will be operate as extraordinary stewards of such wonderful generosity. And thank you to members of the board. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.